That wasn't the right video. God damn it. Talk about screwing this up from the very fucking start. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing out there? We're going to do a take 2 on this. How's that sound, guys?
Take 2.
Let's go.
We'll start, we'll start over.
Stand
Nobody's
by.
watching
Okay.
anyway.
We're
Mark,
boomering.
Cool.
Live
Here we
and
go.
in boomer.
Here we go. Mark it.
Take two. Thank you very much, Gary.
It said rust on it.
It said rust, I'm ducking.
Had a bullet hole in it too.
Shit.
I'll show it to you later.
Oh wait, what in the hell? Where'd it go?
This is so great.
I'm having such a worthless time right now.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, and then everything I just did didn't fucking pan out. So whatever.
No.
I give up. Here's some reactions to Jaws.
Do you think it's going to change your going into the water or swimming or anything like that? It didn't scare you that way.
No, I read the book first, so I sort of knew what I was going to see.
You think the next time you get in the water, you might look around a little bit?
No, I'm going to shut my eyes.
I don't know. I'm still pretty wheezy from the movie. It's really realistic. It's really crazy.
You think it might make you look around a little next time you hit the water?
A little bit for dolphins, anything. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I'm not a water lover anyway. As far as the beach is concerned, I definitely won't be going in now.
Ever again?
Never. I won't even paddle in the water anymore.
Okay.
No, I'm gonna still go in. I'll think about it, you know, when I'm in there. I know, but I'll go in.
Okay.
But I was scared.
I'm not gonna go in that deep anymore.
How deep?
Up here.
Just waist high, huh?
Yeah.
Is that movie going to keep you out of the water because of the sharks?
It'll keep me out for a while. I don't know about those sharks. I'll still be in the water a lot, but I won't go out very far.
So yeah, that was some reactions to Jaws 50 years ago. So yeah, for those who don't know, it is the 50th anniversary this weekend. So here's the actual intro. So here's our take 2.
We need another producer?
Yes, we need another producer, I swear.
A bigger producer.
Six didn't
no,
show up,
producer.
and she's got to work tonight, I think. So, yeah, without her, I'm lost. So, even when she's not actually producing.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, like just that person there to say, you're doing a good job.
Well, I guess I'll be your moral support. Go Tom.
I am so screwing this up, but we're not even 5 minutes in yet. So it doesn't matter. And this clip isn't even that long. It's literally like 1 minute. So I'm all pissed off at myself right now at how screwed up it got.
Well, when I first hear the word Jaws, you know, I just think of a period in my life when I was much younger than I am right now. And I think because I was younger, I was more courageous. Or I was more stupid. I'm not sure which. So when I think of Jaws, I think about courage and stupidity.
And then I put the same picture twice. Look at that. So that was supposed to be the intro, guys.
That was good.
I screwed half of it up. All right.
It was good.
We got Anthem coming in right away with $4.99. Says, here's to swimming with bow-legged women. Thank you very much. And then SFX 314 Sabretooth Raptor sends in 10 and says, bum bum doo doo. Finn comes up, don't go in the water. By the way, historic fact, USS Indianapolis shark attacks inspired the movie, and Quint was said to have served on the Indianapolis. We're going to talk about that. We've got one of my best friends here as far as internet's webs go and YouTubers. We got Gary here talking about our favorite film together, Jaws. This is a movie that it doesn't matter. We have a language that is just Jaws, right? He finds things, he sends me them. In fact, he's gonna show us some cool stuff tonight. Welcome, Gary, to the program. You've been here before, But for all those who may not know who you are, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name's Gary Ambrosia. I enjoy skinny skiing and going to bullfights on acid.
Ooh.
Yes. No, I have a channel here on YouTube where I do restore movie props and little pieces of cinema history. And every Wednesday night, you can find me running my mouth with Dictor Van Dooncock on Pop Culture Breakdown.
That's right. And you also have worked in the industry, and you have tons of fun toys.
Oh
and
yeah,
you may even show a few off tonight.
I could. I might. I don't know if we might be able to squeeze the fin in this little cell that I'm in. I don't know. We'll see.
If we can't squeeze it in there, we got the video. So
that'll be laughable. But yeah, we might be able to do it.
So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
We also have Nick with us tonight. How you doing, Nick Weiser, a regular around these parts?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing, Tom? Hello, Gary. Great to have you on here for this perfect fit. Good to see you, Mark, and hello, Chet. I'm doing pretty good. So, it's been a very busy Sunday, but I like it that way. I don't want to get old, so I'm happy to be here, hanging out with the boys, talking. Well, one of the greatest movies of all time. I can't even remember the first time I've seen it. I know it was when I was living in my first run of Chirac. That's all I know. But let's talk about it.
We will.
I was a young, I was such a young. If I had to guess,
well, you're the youngest one on the stream, I imagine, right now.
37. Yeah, 37.
Yeah. Well, Gary's a vampire and doesn't age, so there's that. But he's 162
Gary looks like
old.
35.
He was born during the Revolution. No. Mark, on the other hand, is here as well. You got a show that you do on Sunday nights where you talk geekery and food. What else do you do over on your channel?
Oh, well, during the week I'll have some videos, 3D, a lot of 3D printing. So,
he does 3D printings.
3D printing, there's a Slimer I just made. So
somebody who loves Slimer, Gary.
Oh, you like Slimer? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's got some real Slimer stuff, actually.
I'm sure you.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Where'd you get that?
I made that. Yep. So on my 3D printer, and I painted it. So
nice.
So that was a fun one to do. So yes, I'm having a lot of fun. My wife is like, "We've got too many plastic things in the house now."
You can't have too many plastic things.
Right. Yep. So a lot of fun doing that, and of course, this shout out to my brother-in-law, who everyone's got to have a Jaws snow globe, right? Right.
I so want that, and it lights up.
Lights up. Yep. It's perfect for the holidays or for the 4th of July, and of course, you've got to. I'm prepared tonight if I need to drink a lot. I've
got the can or bottle opener.
Got the bottle opener. So the world's best bottle opener. But yeah, thanks for having me, and looking forward to talking some Jaws, which is one of my most horrifying memories as a Ute. Living near the water out here in Connecticut. So,
well, you'd be one of us who might actually be old enough to have seen it in theaters. Did you get a chance to see it in theaters, Mark?
I did not see it in theaters because Mom would not let me go. So I would have been 75. Would have been 7 years old. So, but my most horrifying I'll just tell that real quick. My camp, that summer, the 75. The counselors all put us on sunfishes in the water, little teeny sailboats that don't even have a place you can sit in. If you know a sunfish, just spot for your feet. I didn't know how to sail. I'm 7 with all these other kids, and they got a boom box. Back in the 70s, everyone had the boom boxes. So the counselors are in their little motorboat, and they're blaring the Jaws theme as loud as they can.
Jerks.
They shove us off in the boat, and they're like, "There are a lot of sharks around here, so just don't fall off the boat."
Somebody else who was around at that time period is Red Shirt. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Hopefully you can hear me and I can hear you.
We can hear you. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Red Shirt. You're like Keanu Reeves level of breathtaking with how you sound.
Whoa.
Do that. That should help. All right. Yeah, I definitely saw this. Yeah, I think I finally figured this. For some reason, this got changed.
Good. So did you get to see it in theaters?
I saw it in the theater. And we belong to a pond club, not a pool club. So the water was a little murky, because it was a pond. And I remember for about 2 weeks after I watched this movie, every time I dove into the water, I saw that shark's jaws coming at me.
There were people who wouldn't.
And I was in a pond. I'm like, Oh man. But yeah,
and here's
this was something. This was something else for 1975. Holy cow!
so just before we'll ask you your first memory of watching the film, but we also have Andy with us as well here. Oh, don't you do it! Don't you? No!
Andy.
That you get your head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
Looking good, Andy.
The shark. What do you hold? Unless he spits that part out.
This ain't like fishing for bluegills or tommy-cats. So yeah, welcome Andy. How you doing? Well, we were just asking Red Shirt here, his first experience seeing Jaws. Did you get to see it in the theater?
I saw it in the theater several times.
Well, we're about to hear Red Shirt's reaction to it, and then we'll hear yours. So, Red Shirt, go ahead and fill us in on your first experience seeing Jaws.
Oh man, I used to spend a week or two in the summer with my grandparents out on Long Island, and I was, and I saw this
so
in the
you're
theater.
Like right there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could talk about that in a bit because I've been where this was filmed.
I was just going to say,
a couple of times, yeah, because I lived in Eastern Massachusetts for a long time. But yeah, it came out of that theater, and it just was. That was. I mean, I know now the shark didn't work, and it didn't work, and it didn't work, and they couldn't make it work. But when that thing came out of the water, and Brody snapped to attention and backed into the wheelhouse and ad-libbed the line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat." I just about had an accident. That was an incredible moment.
One of the most iconic lines in movie history.
Yeah, and I heard they made that scene longer, the pause between there, because when they tested it, that the audience was going so crazy that you couldn't hear the next few lines, so they extended that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I can believe that. Oh boy, yeah, because he was. That was the reaction to that was, I think, there were kinds of and a few other things at other times when people saw some of the aftermath of the attacks, the shark. But that moment, and you're going to need a bigger boat. That was that was pandemonium in the theater.
Wasn't there like an ad at the time? I swear I seen this where it says, "Go see it again, this time with your eyes open," or something like that.
That's a great advertisement.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I don't remember that, but I can say that sounds like something.
It was either that or The Exorcist had that, but yeah, one of them did. But yeah, it could have been The Exorcist, but no, it still
might have been.
So Andy,
it would have worked with this. Good, Andy.
So how old were you, and what's your memory of seeing Jaws?
I was 8 years old, and I'm not too far from the Jersey Shore, southern Jersey Shore, not that New York area. And we all went to see it when we were kids, and several times. Of course, back then our parents, they were pretty brutal. Like, they can handle it, and needless to say, the Jersey Shore suffered financially that year because nobody wanted to go in the water. And I don't recall how deep I went in, but I don't think it was probably very deep. Everybody thought there were sharks everywhere, and but it didn't stop us from going back to the movies at least 4 times that summer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Jersey Shore is probably
and everything.
See anything that scary until the MTV started shooting the show there, I suppose. But yeah,
that's where the original Jaws was from too. I mean, that was the basis of that shark, the bull shark. Yeah, she was chewing people. It was going upstream because bull sharks, excuse me, can go into like brackish water. So that's part of the original Jaws. But yeah, no one wanted to go. I mean, even though I didn't go see it or probably saw it on VHS or on TV years later.
TV, yeah.
It was just. it was everywhere. It was in the culture, and just of course, we're in the water all year here at summer camp or swimming or.
Right.
Everyone was just, and every kid was like, you have those splashboards, and they'd pretend to have a fin and go, like swimming in the pool or in the ocean.
He made
Everyone
me do it. He talked me into it. So Nick, you said you don't remember your first time seeing it.
Because I had seen it so much as a young,
right?
It was something that was on. My dad watched.
I was gonna say, by the time you were born, it was probably on TV constantly. Yeah,
it would. I remember, like I said, I remember the place of living that I was at in Chirac. But as far as the first time, I don't know if it was like I caught my dad watching and I ended up getting invested, or if he just said, "You're gonna watch this and you're gonna love it." But either I can't remember what the outcome was, what going in the income was going to be. But at the end of the day, I fell in love with the movie as a kid. Obviously, it made me think about sharks because we were by a local swimming pool, and it did make me think of sharks at that local swimming pool. I still swam because it's like pools are awesome. So, but yeah, it definitely had an effect on me as a kid, thinking, whoa, this movie's really intense. It was probably the first, I guess you could say, really intense movie I'd ever seen. To my memory, of course. If there was one I'd seen before that, I must not remember it, because to my memory, Jaws is the be all end all. The first movies that really that kind of shook me. And of course, I have seen it 1,100 times to this damn day. It's it is a 5 out of 5 attempt, and still beyond the hype. Still beyond the hype. It ain't even close.
I mean, I swear there was one point, probably in the early aughts, where it was probably on television at some point all day long. You could turn on a channel somewhere and Jaws was playing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sure.
But Gary, so you and I, of course, are roughly around the same age, and we grew up with Jaws as kind of a pop culture icon already, I think, by the time we were both born. And you're a huge fan like I am, and here you are as a youngin'. Already caught your first shark. At the age, fuck Davy Crockett killing a bear at 3.
I know, right?
A great white shark at 5, 6, something like that.
Yeah. Well, so this was actually the first day that I had seen the movie. So this is my first experience. My mom showed me the movie early on the weekend on a Saturday, and we lived in Thousand Oaks, which is not too far. It's about 20, 30 miles away from Universal Studios. And I love the movie so much that I wanted to, she said, well, do you want to go see the shark? And I was like, what are you talking about? So she took me to Universal Studios, and they had this big giant shark hanging up at and then this is, look at how big this thing is. So that
25.
So this picture is the second time I went to Universal. This is the first day I went to Universal here, and that's me with the actual. Now I just thought that was a shark that was hanging at Universal Studios. That ended up being the shark that they the actual shark from the movie, like a fiberglass casting of it. And that's the one that ended up at the junkyard and that Greg Nicotero just restored.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, they used the same mold for all 4 films, right?
Well, only
except for 3, I think. Part 3 they didn't, and they upgraded it a bit for part 4, but I think they went back
everything
to the
for part 1 went to the
2.
ride. Well, 2, they redid the mouth. It doesn't have the jowls.
Yeah, okay. So I thought they kept using it, though, but you're right. Maybe they just used it for the ride. Maybe I misremembered.
3, they totally... 3 is like a 30-foot shark. That thing's really big.
Yeah, they have 2 different sharks for part 3, but then I thought they went back to the original mold for 4, but you probably know better than I do on that part.
Actually, 4 is like smaller. It's only 21 feet, and they used a modified ride version of the shark. So they kind of got a little cheap with that one. But I think from the fin onto the back, it's still the same shark, like you're saying. But I think
I just know they reused it for other things. Maybe it was just for the ride. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this was distinctly Bruce from the first movie.
Right.
I believe they had 3 sharks for the first movie.
That's correct. Yeah. They made 3.
Yeah. They had an animatronic that was supposed to be able to swim to the left, one that was supposed to be able to swim to the right. They had the shark that was towed And I believe that's the one that goes by, that cruises by the boat. And they were towing
Yeah.
that shark on a really long line because it, of course, not needing to be animatronic, it was the most reliable they had. And they finally gave up. But here's a little funny bit from the show. It was filmed in I was filmed on Martha's Vineyard in a place called Edgartown, which I've been to a couple of times. I've stayed in overnight. And if you remember from the movie, when they want to get over to the beach where one of the attacks occurred, they have to get on a ferry, which holds like 4 or 6 cars. And they take this ferry across. And it's funny because just a couple of years earlier, there'd been a bridge. And but some guy coming home from a party missed getting on the bridge, drove off into the water. He managed to get out of the car, and his date didn't. And they decided that since no normal human being could drive across that bridge safely, they'd tear it down and replace it with that ferry. Of course, I'm being sarcastic as all hell because that was Chappaquiddick Bridge.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Dude.
I resemble those remarks.
Mary Jo said I was a swimmer.
But so yeah, we're showing images here on the screen of the left to right sharks and the right to left sharks.
Yep, and
now,
those are sharks.
Also, wasn't there one that was just basically the head too, or is that one of the left?
Yeah, they had a
Yes.
head. Yeah,
I believe that's
that-
the one that ate Robert Shaw. Was they
Yes.
mounted the head to the
And I
back of
think
the
that's-
boat, and all it could do was chew.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's also the one that's in the famous picture here. If I can get it to come up, because now, of course, all I got is a small version of it. Here we go. This would be the luxurious shark, as Jean Schwartz used to call it, the luxurious shark, which would be the full-on animatronic one. The one that famously, and I don't know if this is true. Now, have you ever? I don't think I've ever got to talk to you about this, Gary. There's a famous story, and Steven kind of brushed against it in the new Jaws at 50 documentary, so it kind of adds some credence to it now. But there's another player involved. So supposedly him, George Lucas, and Martin Scorsese were on the set, and Steven was showing off the sharks, and George goes, "I want to see how it works." And as the famous story goes, they broke the shark.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah, that
So
was
this
in one of
whole
the
time-
documentaries I was watching. Yeah, they said they snuck in to
Yes.
try to get a picture. And then George was climbing in. They were playing with
and they broke the
controls,
shark.
and they broke it. But the shark
And-
broke all the time anyway.
But the shark, here's the thing, that story has always kind of been a kernel of why the shark never properly worked beyond the other ones they had reasons for, because they tested him in, okay, first of all, got to start from the beginning. This movie was supposed to be shot and had 3 years to film. So this movie wasn't even technically supposed to be out till like late 76 or early 77. But Universal didn't have a movie for summer of
75
or spring actually of 75.
Yeah.
And they're like, we want this movie now. And Steven's like, well, we're not ready. And the research and development department's like, you told us we had like almost 2 years to develop this. If I had 2 years to get this done, we could do this. But you're making us basically bum rush this now. And so they had no time to test any of this shit outside of just the basics. So like, I'm sure Gary has more to add to it, but like, it was a disaster for these guys trying to put these sharks together and get them working in the time period they need. And that's one of the reasons why they didn't work, because they didn't even have time to get them to work in the first place.
Didn't the salt water kill it, or Gary?
Yeah,
that was one of the main problems.
That's the thing. They tested it out at the lagoon and everything, and at the tanks at Universal, it worked great. But the problem is if you have electronics or anything that you're running in salt water, the ocean's just basically a giant battery. So it'll throw off all your electronics, and the salt water is much more dense. So whatever's absorbing into the foam rubber is a lot heavier. The weight's more. It's going to throw off the way the shark moves. You know who?
Yeah.
I mean, salt water is salt water's nasty.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't work for electronics or anything really mechanical.
Yeah. But the story about George and Steven got so mythological that they actually, I don't know if anybody else but me has seen this, but there's a short film that a guy made called Courage and Stupidity. And that's what it's about. It's like this, what if the scenario is that George and Steven accidentally broke the shark and that's why the son of a bitch didn't work. And so Steven's stuck trying to figure out how to make this movie now. And he gets all these ideas of like, he drops like a red marker in the water and he sees the red billow up and he's like, and he's just kind of showing, it's obviously a satire, but it's like this whole thing of where he gets all these ideas to make it work without the shark, basically. It's really kind of funny. But
imagine if the shark Bruce had killed Lucas, and we never got Star Wars, right? Steven did the controls and killed George Lucas. No Star Wars. Yeah.
Well, because that's what he said in that story in Jaws 50. Is he said George got in the mouth, and then Marty started doing the thing, and he's like, "Holy shit! I almost killed George Lucas," kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, were there any safeties on that shark?
Sorry, what did Richard say?
So okay, so they were having trouble. Obviously, they're having a lot of trouble with the sharks, and it was taking. I mean, it was weeks, and they couldn't just keep the crew standing around waiting for them to fix the shark so they could do a shoot. So what they did was they took all their walkie-talkie frequencies, and they put them, and they got them hooked up to the town's announcement systems. Basically,
this story,
basically they're loudspeakers in Edgartown. So as you're walking around Edgartown, you're hearing the radio traffic from the production. Tell Steven the shark doesn't work. It's broke again. Blah, blah, blah. And of course, everybody who's just wandering around town, taking a break, not having to be on set for whatever reason, is like, okay, I got time to go to another store. And they're just all hanging out in town, going to the local bars, having lunch, whatever it was. All of a sudden, one day, over the loudspeakers comes, "We got the shark to work. It's working. The shark is working." And a third of Edgartown disappeared.
There's another version of that story too that Richard loves to tell, Richard Dreyfuss, because the whole thing is, the shark is not working. The shark is not working.
Yeah.
Like that's constantly what you kept hearing, like Red Shirt just said. And then one day all of a sudden you hear, "The shark is working. The shark is working, but the boat is sinking. The boat is sinking." Repeat, the boat is sinking. Because what happened
Save the actors.
And then the sound guy, because the famous thing was because they ran Bruce underneath the boat or whatever it was, and it pulled the whole, because there was two versions of the orca. There was the regular real orca.
Yeah.
Then there was the one that was built on pontoons that they could lift and do other things
like
to.
A fake boat, yeah.
Like a fake boat. Well, it ripped the whole underneath out, and so the whole thing was going down. And so they're like, "Get the actors off the boat, get the actors off the boat." And the sound guy is sitting there with the Niagara on over his head. He's like, "Fuck the actors, get the sound off the boat."
Yeah. He did have like a $50,000 Niagara recorder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Save the Niagara, save the Niagara. Yeah. Because that was the other thing too, is they lost the whole camera. And was it Joe Alves or was it the cinematographer? One of them said, "Well, I think we can save this because the salt water is really similar to the saline solution that they use." Mm-hmm. So they managed to rush the film back to like Kodak or wherever it was, the Eastman or whatever they took it to, and or Technicolor, actually, I think it would have been at that time. And they got it all processed, but so they almost lost a whole day. But that's the other thing, is shooting a day on Jaws was like a nightmare, because the original shoot was only set for I think 100 days, and I think they ended up going almost 100 days over schedule.
Yeah.
So
Waterworld would have learned their lesson, right?
Yeah.
They said, wasn't that one of the first movies shot on the open ocean? I was reading.
Yes, because Steven's whole thing was he didn't want to see any land. And Chappaquiddick was the only place where he could go out 14, 15 miles where the shark could still work, because they needed a bottom within, 30 feet Gary, or is it less than that? I can't
Probably,
remember.
maybe even less than that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was either 20 or
Yeah.
30 feet they needed to be able to have the ground, the bottom, plus be able to go out that far. So that place was just perfect for it. But the problem they kept running into, besides the shark not working, the other thing is every day they would go to shoot something out on the open ocean, they'd have their shot set up, and then all of a sudden a little dinghy, like because you'd have the horizon there, and then a little dinghy would come across.
Yeah.
And for that little dinghy to come across would take like 2-3 hours. And then, so what they would sit there and do is they'd sit there and calculate, well, would it be quicker to reset everything and move it around ahead of it or behind it, or just sit here and wait for the dinghy to cross? And they're like, well, it's a lot less time just to wait for the dinghy to cross, and let's just hope another one doesn't come.
Why did they just take it out with CGI?
They couldn't then. That was the problem. They couldn't just erase it out. Now that's what they would do. They would just erase that one out. But like that was the thing. So they'd wait, and then they'd have X amount of time just to shoot, and they'd get it done. Or then they would try to go to shoot, and the shark wouldn't work, and all fucking hell would break loose. And that was why the shoot took so long. And it got so bad that Steven left. He left for the last few shots were done because he knew that the crew was going to either throw him in the water or worse. So this started a tradition of his where he would never shoot the last shot of his film. But the last day of shooting was all Joe Alves. He shot the shark blowing up, the Kintner boy getting bit, and a couple other shots. I can't remember what. I think maybe the stuff in the lake.
That was the last
like
day?
Well, just the one shots, like the pickup shots, like the stuff that's in between. So like the actual shark blowing up though, that was the big thing that Alves did that Steven just, he got out of there because he's like, I'm not going to stay here for this because these guys are going to fucking kill me. Because everybody
was scared to go in the water anyway by then, right? Yeah.
Like, he knew what's weird, get him somehow.
What's weird is obviously you've got an entire bunch of, Hollywood landlubbers here. Because if you know anything about the waters around Chappaquiddick, all the way out east to Nantucket, which is east of Cape Cod, where Cape Cod hooks north. And for that line between them and miles to the south is a sand flats, very shallow. Right. And it is a navigational nightmare if you're in anything bigger than a, medium-sized sailboat or smaller. Because if you draw too much water and the tide's going down, at some point you are going to ground out and have to sit there until the tide comes back in and hope you refloat. So the whole area was almost the whole area would have been appropriate for them for shooting with a bottom that was 30 feet or less down. But, it just takes longer and longer to get to another location. And their final shot, they have to swim back to Amity Island. And the only way they could do that was they had to be within about like 2 miles of the island. So that Brody and Hooper could, which
kind of goes against that last scene where they're saying we need to start heading back towards land instead of him leading us out to sea. But we went on a roundabout way because we got to finish the intro part here. Real sorry, guys, because Andy has a great picture of. I'm assuming this is himself and either some friends or your brothers or.
They're my brothers. Yeah. Yeah, that was. So there you go. Jaws was everywhere.
Right.
I even had the Jaws game where he would eat all the pieces and.
Oh, I had that too. I stole it from my grandma's house.
He ate all my Micronauts and Star Wars figures.
It was the perfect size to eat all those figures. Exactly. It was huge. Yeah, it was cool. It took a lot of baths with me. Let's say the eyes, they came off pretty quick because of the bath water, but it didn't matter to me. I just used a marker and made them black like they're supposed to be anyway.
Nice.
But speaking of that, okay, so my first experience with Jaws. So just so people know, I've told this story before, but there's a part I had one of those epiphany or memories of oh shit, that's where this all started to begin with. Because I just remember, and I've told this the first part or the second part of the story, but I never told the first part of the story before because I just remembered it last week out of the blue. Because so for years, my first memory of seeing Jaws was Jaws 2 was coming on television, but I had not seen Jaws 1 yet. So I was bound and determined to see Jaws 1, and I could never remember the reason why I wanted to see him in the first place, but now I did. But anyway, I'll get back to that. So we were having a rummage sale and I put my stuff up for sale and was selling cupcakes and everything like that. and I took the money I made from our rummage sale and I went and rented Jaws. It was the first time I ever rented a movie with my own money by myself, basically.
Wow.
And I sat and watched Jaws for the first time, and it blew my little fucking mind at the age of 6. I was just transfused to this movie. And I probably watched it, I don't know, like 5 times in the day that I had it rented, right? Like just constant, like my parents were probably sick of it by the end of that day. And then of course, the next few days later, I got to see Jaws 2, and you know, the rest is history, because it was like, but I remember where this all came from the other day. It was when I was about 3 or 4 years old. My uncle, who had those old school satellite dishes, where if you had a scrambler, you could get like HBO and all that shit. Well, HBO was showing Jaws 3 at that time, but my cousins kept kicking me out of the room and wouldn't let me watch it. And I did get to see one fucking scene, and it stuck with me. And that was a scene where Leah Thompson gets bit. So for years, that was like one of those things that stuck with me as a little kid. So it was like this obsession that I got to see these movies now. And I just remembered that the other day out of the blue, which was really weird. And I know for most people that doesn't mean shit, but it's like, you know, like, oh my God, I can't believe I just had a memory from when I was like 3 or 4 years old. Like, you ever have like one of those things that kind of knocks you back on your ass, especially the older you get? I know some of the older guys, you probably know.
It happens to me all the time.
Right? Yeah. So it was kind of cool. And then all this is coming at the same time, flooding back to me with Jaws. So it's this thing that's been with me since I can remember, right? Like Jaws was always there. I remember my mom always talking about going to see the movie in Chicago in this big, huge theater and getting scared shitless, right? And it was one of the few movies my dad would love and sit down and watch with us almost all the time. So like, it was just one of those things that was always there, and it was a constant favorite of mine. And we're always quoting it. Shit. I mean, like Gary and I, we quote it all the time, and you guys and I, we all quote it all the time. It was just a movie that stuck with me my entire life. And as I got older, I started to notice why it's a perfect movie, right? Because there's just all those elements that come together, and it shouldn't, right? Even Steven Spielberg has said a million times over, it should have never worked. And to this day, James Cameron in that documentary, which it made me laugh, he's like, every time I go to make a movie on the water, Steven calls me up and begs me not to remind me of how bad of an experience this is. And it's really cathartic watching some of the movie, the new documentary too. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. Because Steven actually kind of gets into how the whole story of the orca and how it was on the Universal lot, and Gary probably knows this. So for those who don't know, they moved the orca over to the ride or near the ride or something like that as an attraction. And Steven would go down there and sneak in there, but he told another part of the story he never told before, because he would just say, oh, I just go down there and reminisce and blah, blah, blah. Well, the other part of the story is not only would he go down there and reminisce, he would go down there and have emotional fucking breakdowns and flashbacks to the whole thing. And he would have this constant thing. And he didn't realize until the orca was gone what it was all about, because they moved the orca out because it was just falling apart. And he freaked out, and he said,
they chopped it up and destroyed it.
Yeah, they destroyed it. But like he said, he probably feels bad for how he talked to that whoever it was that he talked to on the phone about it. But he was just insanely upset about what they did to this. But then he realized he had to let the orca go. He had to let that go. And a lot of that shit was his pent up nightmare about making this movie. Because he says he still wakes up to this day with sweating nightmares of making Jaws. Like, here he is.
Because he wasn't the Steven Spielberg we know now. That was his second movie. It was Sugar Land Express.
Yeah.
And he done
Yeah, he had people coming up and telling him he's going to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody was coming up and telling him, you're done after this. This movie's never going to make it. It's never going to happen. Your career's over. You know, he'd have never thought in a million years it was going to be the movie that we are still talking about.
It launched him,
years later. And I've said it before. If that damn shark would have worked, he wouldn't be Steven Spielberg now. He'd be this B-movie guy.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been the movie that it was. Yeah.
Nope.
I
Definitely.
remember when I was at Universal Studios, I saw the orca there when I was a little kid. It was there till 96. And they had just left it in the water, and it capsized. It like the bow broke, and they had to haul it away. One day it just wasn't there. And that was it. They threw it away.
Yeah.
It was
rotten. He did get the screws. Spielberg got the screws and the wheel. They said, the guy that he yelled at, they were able to get him. Sorry, Red Shirt, what were you going to say?
What were you say? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm agreeing with Tom. Put it another way. If the monster had actually worked all the way through the monster movie, it would have been forgotten within a month.
Yep. it'd have just been another B picture. And we got Rock Fan here, 70s Rock Fan, and you're in the right place because this came out in the 70s.
Well, I was there. I went to see it. I'm old enough to have seen it first time
Your
around.
timing is actually perfect.
I'm assuming Andy's saying he was too. I would never assume that, Andy, of course.
We actually I just finished my recollection of seeing it for the first time. Yes, Andy Red Shirt got to see it in the theater the first time. Mark didn't get to, but he did. He does remember.
Oh, I did. It was so exciting, and everybody knew that it wasn't the opening night, but so I knew there was going to be a head rolling into a porthole type scene. But it's still, everyone still jumped out of their seat. Everybody. Oh my God.
You know, Richard Reisnick told me a really funny story that he says he never told anybody else about that scene. Yeah, he said, you know, Gary, when the scene when the head pops out of the boat, well, the tooth, you know, I pull the tooth out. Well, the tooth is upside down, and I'd never noticed that. He said the tooth wouldn't have been like that, right? So I told Steven, hey, Steven, the tooth is upside down. He said, no one's going to notice that. I said, well, I did. I said, you know, Richard, I said, I've been watching this movie for 40 years, and you just ruined that scene for me. He's like, you're welcome.
You know, Gary, the tooth hurts.
I would have been like, no, I noticed it. And you know what my little head did? So for years, this is how I got around that, Gary, because I have always noticed that. I figured what it was is when he did the bite, the tooth got caught when he went on the reopening of his jaw. So it would have just been caught on the edge of it, like he caught underneath the bit of his gum. Right. That's just how I was like, okay, that's how come it's that.
The upper jaw would have had to catch the lower half of the boat or something. It's weird.
Somehow it just like, I just was like, that must be fine. Like,
it doesn't matter. Right.
It doesn't, but you're right. It is. It's upside down.
His balls. He was busting his balls about it because he just wanted to fuck with him, I'm sure.
Well, what's great about that scene, and Gary, I know you're not obsessed with that scene, but you know a lot about it because you've been on a search for a while for the casting, the mold.
Oh yeah, the Ben Gardner's head. So this is interesting.
Yeah.
So that head, I don't know who made it. I know it was kind of an afterthought in the movie, like they shot it after they had shot everything. And you know, because Spielberg was like, "There's one more scare I can get in this movie," and
they wouldn't give him any fucking money either, so he did it himself.
Yeah, they did it in a pool,
right?
Yeah, they did it in a pool.
Vernon Fields.
Vernon Field, the editor's pool, and they filled the pool with like powdered carnation creamer just to murky it up a little bit. And they shot the scene with the head popping out. But the thing is that the head was made by the Berman Effects Company. Well, the Berman Effects Company, they also, you know, during hiatus, they run a Halloween mask manufacturing, you know, place, kind of like, Shamrock Studios type thing. You know what I mean? And they make monster masks. Well, in the 90s, they had released a prop called the Severed Bloated Head, and nobody realized that they had just taken the mold of Ben Gardner's head and they were making castings of it and selling them to Halloween stores.
Wow.
So the people who were lucky enough to get that run, they have them now. They go for a lot of money, but they're actually just straight out of the porcelain life cast of the actor who played Ben Gardner, which is pretty damn interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you told me
Can you
that
still
story.
get that then, or the cast? So what happened to the casting? No one knows, or they still have it? Or?
I'm sure Berman Studios in Los Angeles still has the mold. I've been to their studio and they have like a Costco size back room that's filled with life casts and molds of Halloween masks, but it's there somewhere, you know?
Yeah. And they don't know what they have, basically.
They didn't know. It just, you know, they hired a bunch of guys to make Halloween masks, but they just pulled masks off the shelf, and one of them happened to be the head from Jaws.
Wow.
And they made hundreds of them, you know, and some people were lucky enough to get them. I remember when I worked at a Halloween store when I was a little kid. I was like 14, and they had them there. I had no idea that they were there. They had them there. Yeah, been looking for one.
So I'm assuming everyone's told all the Jaws jokes so far, like the dandruff joke. Has he told the dandruff joke? How do you know?
I don't think anybody's told it.
How do you know the girl at the beginning of the movie didn't have dandruff? because she left her head and shoulders on the beach.
Oh, that was too
And
good.
if you watch Jaws backwards, it's actually a heartwarming story of a shark who helps disabled people put their lives back together.
Oh, that's
I love those whole load of those. I love them. It's a chance to tell them
I've
again.
never heard that one. That's really good. That's really good. So I thought of another thing. You know what? Outside of the shark that I thought about when watching this movie as a kid, boats. And maybe I was actually kind of weird about getting on boats because this movie made boats seem so delicate and fragile.
Yeah.
Granted, I know it's a different timeline, but still seeing how things could go wrong and when it all starts to collapse, I was like, bro, you're at sea and that shit happens. Fuck.
Never go to sea.
Yeah.
Ever.
So then I was like, I ain't
You're either gonna sink.
I ain't going to the sea ever.
You either get sunk by a giant wave or eaten by a shark or piranhas. Never go to sea.
That was just as poignant for me as the shark. Is just the fact that you're out at sea and that shit happens. I'm like, bro, okay, I think I'll wait on the ocean for sometime between now and my death. Whew.
You get stuck out there with George Clooney.
Oh, dude, suicide. Oh,
You definitely would want him to go down with the ship, though.
Yeah.
You want Jason Statham out there. That's what you need. Jason Statham. Yeah.
Jason Statham.
Well, he actually was in
May.
Olympic swimming, so that actually would be like the shoe fit for Jason Statham.
And he took out the neck.
You don't want that because he would always outswim you to get away. You want someone who can't swim. You can swim faster than them.
Oh, damn.
Well,
I mean, this movie was just so terrifying for everyone, by the water. And still, that's what's amazing about it. You guys were, mentioning, thankfully the shark didn't work, which made it even more terrifying. That opening scene. I mean, I remember the first time seeing that. It's just so horrific with she's a stunt double or actress, so that she was a good swimmer. And, and then you find out later, there's guys on shore pulling her with cables, but as a little kid seeing that, whenever I first watch it, it's like you think she's getting chopped by that shark. I mean, that looks, and it's all the more terrifying because you can't see the shark. You can't see what's under the water.
Mark, you'd think she would have heard it coming with that damn tuba playing all the time.
I know, right? Everybody hears that song and they know the shark's there. I mean, that's a given.
Right? But that's what's so scary about being in the water, especially on the East Coast. You're in the Caribbean, the water's crystal clear. You can't see shit out here in the water. So it's that, and that's why monster movies are so scary. Like if you're camping at night, you're out in the forest, or when it's dark, you just can't see what's there. I mean, if you see the bear, 1,000 feet away, you're not as scared. You can, go somewhere, do something. But you're in the water and something, nips at your feet or something happens, instantly you're like, it's a shark. And sharks go into shallow water now too, that you're finding out. The more we learn about sharks, but we always thought, back then they're like, well, don't go out deep, you'll be safe, and now you find out these bull sharks, especially
the land sharks are the worst ones. The land sharks.
Yeah. They lie. See,
the land whales are the worst.
Well,
even worse.
The land whales are the worst. That's true. They're more dangerous. But just to finish up the story about Bruce, and then we can get into the other aspects of the film, because to finish off Gary's story, because it has a strange, the original Bruce has a strange journey, because as we were saying, it wound up at a car place at some point for some reason.
It wound up at this place called You Pick Parts in Sun Valley. And we used to go there looking for art department stuff. And there it was. I couldn't believe it. And then, years later, I realized, oh my gosh, that's the one that I took the pictures with when I was a little kid. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that's actually the shark from Jaws. And the guy would not sell it. The guy would not sell it. Like people were going to him and saying, well, we'll give you 50 grand for this thing right now. He's like, nope, it's not happening. And he passed away, the owner. So when the place, I think it was, I don't know if it closed down. It might still be active, an active wrecking yard. But when he passed away, Greg Nicotero from K&B, he came and got it, and they restored it, and it's hanging at the Motion Picture Academy Museum in Los Angeles.
Nice.
And it looks great.
By the way,
share Gary's latest video on the casting of Bruce's fin.
Yep.
Well, we were just going to
By
get
the
to
way,
that here. Go ahead, Red Shirt.
very
Yes,
quick thing about regarding Ben Gardner. Ben Gardner was teamed up with Robert Shaw. So basically, Ben Gardner, who was played by Craig Kingsbury, was the inspiration for Shaw and Shaw's character. But one day, a guy named Lynn Murphy, who was also he had in enormous way, had enormous influence. He was a marine mechanic, and to find it here.
Yeah, Lynn and Susan were driving the production to and from the shark barge.
Yeah. Well, legend has it that Shaw was having difficulty one day with how to deliver one of his lines. As he was speaking to Spielberg about this, Lynn was in the background hollering at one of the crew members, totally losing it. Steven stopped Robert and said, "You hear that? That's how I want you to sound. From now on, Lynn is Quint." So,
well,
Lynn provided the voice.
If he'd have known him ahead of time, he said he probably would have cast him as Quint. And what's funny is he's in the movie. He has a part. Like, so for those who don't know, you've seen him in the movie. He's the guy, Ben Gardner. He's the guy on the boat. He goes, once those guys buoys start hitting those rocks, they'll be wishing their fathers never met their mothers. That's him. And all the lines in the movie, he made them all up on his own. That's all his improvisation. And Steven just told him to go, and he would go.
Yeah.
I bought my screen used barrel from Susan Murphy. She had all the barrels from the movie.
Wow.
The yellow barrel. She sold me the one of the barrels.
Oh, that's awesome.
But they paired up Robert Shaw with Craig Kingsbury, who played Ben Gardner. And so basically Ben Gardner may have become famous as the head that popped out of the hull of his fishing boat, because he was also a shark hunter. But those are the two guys that they used to inspire Robert Shaw. And that was a phenomenal combination. And Shaw, thank God they got Robert Shaw to play that role, because he was so good at it.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit more, because there were some other folks who were up for the part before him. But as Andy brought up, like, this was so bring us up to speed, because you can check out this whole video, and I'll share the link. It is in the description, Gary's channel, if you want to check it out. So you got this. Tell us the story about this. We'll watch a little bit of it as you're giving us some commentary here.
This is the dorsal fin from that was used in the first film. It's called a sled fin. It was used on what's called the sled shark, which is just when you see the fin and the tail passing through the water,
like in the lake part where you just see the shark, and she's like, or the fin, and she's like, shark.
There's one spot. There's a production still I've seen that this fin is actually used in, and it's the one where Teddy Grossman, the stunt guy, he's the victim in the estuary. He's in the front of the shark and he's holding on to Brody's kid. It was like a deleted scene, but that fin was used whenever they're pulling the fin in the water, they have it on a little metal frame and they're pulling it around. But it also ended up on the ride in 1976 as the fin that pops out, when the tram tour comes around, the fin pops out. And it was not in the greatest shape, so they replaced it in 96 with another casting, and I ended up with it.
Wow.
And it's got about 8 feet of the back of the shark on
that must be fun, Gary, when you invite people around for a pool party.
Oh, man. Yeah.
That and the yellow refs he gives them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, go swimming.
Where do you have that? Do you have that on display somewhere cool, or?
Well, right now it's at the university, because that's where I did the mold. This thing is way too big to do it in my little shop. So
yeah, you were like, you don't have any place to keep it. Like, looking at it, like, just look at the size of it there compared to you.
And the fin itself is big, but the bottom of the shark, it's like the back of the shark. It's like 7-8 feet long by almost 3 feet wide. It's huge.
Wow.
And it's
Because
heavy.
I'm
as
looking
hell.
at this thing and I'm like, I want one, but I'm sitting here thinking, where the fuck would I put it?
The fin itself is not bad. If you have a large empty wall, you can hang it because it's only about maybe 10 inches wide at most.
If anything, maybe do a half of a fin. Can you do like a
Sure.
flat part?
Well, look, the
because then you
molds
could hang
change.
it on the wall. That's actually a great idea. Actually.
Yeah, it would only be about 5 inches wide, and you see, I could do a half. I could do a half fin. I hadn't thought about that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, because then you just have a flat on the other part of it, so then or you
Right.
can even mold in a hook or whatever, like
or mount it on a piece of wood like it's a trophy.
There you go. Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
Or just mount it in front of a window.
There you go.
So this
Land
is
shark.
really cool. So like you got a little piece of history here, which is really neat. We're gonna jump ahead a little bit here because you actually get you actually got it in two pieces and then you put it together and what's great about this video, and I encourage anybody who's interested in this, definitely check it out because you go through the whole process of how you have to do this. So we're just seeing a small portion of this right now. So this is it as it comes out from, this is the fiberglass mold basically, right?
The casting, yeah. The mold is the
casting,
silicone part, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That's what I meant. Sorry.
It's all right.
No, I know. So this is the fiberglass, and now this is you're gonna paint it and sand it down and do all the
cleaned
it's
up
cool
the
that
seams
little
and everything.
how recognizable those little two divots are in that shark fin.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's quite amazing to sit and look at this thing. It is really big. It's way bigger than I ever remembered it being.
And the texture, that's just awesome.
Yeah, it's there. So I had to really be careful not to destroy the texture and all. But yeah, a little Bondo work. It's kind of like working on an automobile if you've ever
Look at that
done
shine.
So then you jump ahead here and we get this awesome money shot. That's one of the barrels.
Oh yeah.
There's your land shark right there.
There's a barrel.
Land shark. Land shark.
You gotta go in the water with
Candy
that. You
ram.
gotta go swimming into the beach with that.
I'm just a dolphin, ma'am.
Yeah, it turned out really nice. The paint job was really good. I was really
That is really you did a really good job
Incredible.
recreating it. So
Yeah.
what exactly did it take? Because obviously there's like almost looks like a tiger striping going on there. How did you?
It's just a matter of I just have a bunch of stills from the movie, and I actually bought a slide, and I bought one of the production slides you shot on the production, and I blew it up so that I could match, kind of what it looked like. That's basically it. It's about 3 or 4 different colors, kind of, airbrushed in. But yeah,
That's
it
quite
really
incredible.
turned out great.
Nice.
And I can make more of them. I can make a whole bunch of them. So
Reminds me of my favorite ending of all the different cuts of Jaws is the French one where it just says "fin."
Well, speaking of making them, I'm sure some people might be interested. So keep that in mind, especially if you do one that
they're
you can
not
hang
for
on the
sale.
wall.
Just so you know, they are not for sale. Nobody's getting these.
Sharknado.
A couple of people will be getting maybe we'll be getting these, but those
Ooh.
people are dear to my heart. But this is not for sale.
We actually have a button for that.
Sorry. This is
But
a
speaking
piece
of
history, and no one else. is getting
cool Jaws stuff, you have some other stuff here as you show off in the video. Some cool memorabilia from the film. If you want to take us through this stuff as it comes up here in just a moment, I think it's just about there. You
the
got
barrel
here.
Yeah, the barrel is really rare because they were made, way back in probably the early 70s, and I don't really know what they were used for. They're sealed solid barrels. I think they might have been used for Department of Transportation, and they filled them with water and they put them in on highways in case people hit something, and you know what I mean, because there is a Department of Transportation serial number on it, and on the bottom of the barrel it says "Born Free." So it's a very interesting thing, but
I like it because it'd be a makeshift thing that Quinn would have probably had to use because he wouldn't have bought like the fancy shark barrel things.
Yeah, well, he made that it was his process that he invented with the barrel. But was the interesting story about the barrel is that the production built the floating barge to house the animatronic shark out of 100 of these barrels because you could seal them and they float. And they couldn't figure out because the shark was not working. They're like, well, what are we going to do to show something that the shark is there.
Right.
And they said, well, we have these barrels. Why don't we have the guys, harpoon the shark? And whenever you see the barrels there, well, the shark's there. And then we can get away with not using the shark.
So
That
wait,
was where the
that
barrels
was
came
something that Quint came up with in the book? That wasn't something that, because I've seen other people actually do the barrel thing with sharks now, but they'll use the balloon
I don't
barrel
know.
thing.
I don't even know if the barrels were in the book.
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember.
From what I understand, because the barrels were there, they used them to create the barge that that housed the shark, and that was an idea on set that they're like, well, we have no way to show this shark. How are we going to show it? The only way they could show it really while the shark wasn't working was by the barrels.
Right.
So,
brilliant. Yeah.
haul these barrels
but
around,
I've seen,
and that's it.
But it's funny because I just assumed that was something that Quint used as okay, because just to kind of wrap my head around this, I remember seeing some National Geographic thing years ago, we're talking probably 20, 30 years ago now, where they actually had shark barrels, but they were like balls, and they would shoot them into the sharks so they could follow them and know where they were at and stuff like that. Same kind of concept. Well, so I was just assuming that Quint was adopting that idea where if you shoot a big fish with enough of these barrels, they won't be able to swim.
Maybe that's
basically
true.
Suffocate them. I don't know if that was something he adopted, or if they came up with that for the movie. That's brilliant because it sounds like they adopted that into science. Is what I'm saying.
I don't know about that, but I assumed that Quint came up with that idea. I don't know. I didn't know. It was
okay. Well, if somebody in the chat knows, that's interesting because I just always assumed that was the case. So
according to Joe Alves and I think it was Steven Spielberg, they mentioned that the barrels were something they had to improvise on set because
that part I know.
Yeah. So, but the nice thing is that they had 100 of these barrels, but they only used several of them for the production, and they painted them yellow. Obviously, because Steven Spielberg's color for danger was yellow. But Susan Murphy, who we were talking about earlier, the wife of Lynn Murphy, who was the guy who inspired Quint, she still has a lot of these things at their place in Edgartown, and she sold me one probably about maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15, and it's extremely fragile and very, very rare. So I got to take really good care of it. But I did, I did paint it and make it look like, one of the barrels used in Jaws. I was on the phone with Andy as I was scraping this thing up, and I was just mortified, worried that I was going to destroy it, but I had to do it because that's, the barrel's black. It's black nylon plastic. And that's the reason why they look that way in the movie.
It's plastic?
Yeah, exactly. They just spray painted them yellow, and because they got thrown over the bow and they were used so often, it just scratched all the paint off of them.
Oh, that's where you're getting the black underneath it.
Exactly.
From that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
There were a lot of expletives too.
Yeah, exactly. but that's why the barrel looks that way.
What I love is that they make a cameo in part 2.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. They're where are they? They're somewhere in
I'm going to give people a few minutes to remember where they're at.
Okay.
And then
I think that one of the idea of the barrel too. I think Quint's idea was that I guess the shark wouldn't be able to dive, so that's why he says, "Oh, I can't." They took down 3 barrels, so I guess you'd keep the shark on the surface.
And like I said, I saw some National Geographic show where they were doing a similar thing. They weren't trying to suffocate him basically or drown him like Quint was, but they were just trying to keep track of them. But they were using the same kind of concept. So I just always thought, oh, so that must be what Quint kind of does.
Was the documentary post 1975 or pre 1975?
I think so. I think it was post, and that's why I was asking him, because if you knew that was kind of well, shit. If that's true, that's amazing. Because
this could have.
Well, here's the other thing to kind of jump ahead a little bit, because here's the thing, folks. Most people didn't know shit about the Indianapolis until Jaws came out. Because one of the stories I heard in Jaws, that documentary that I'd never heard before, was I think it was Peter Benchley's housekeeper called in the day after Jaws came out, and she said, "I'm not coming into work today." And he's like, "Is everything okay?" She's like, "Yeah, everything's fine. I just never knew how my son died. He was on the Indianapolis, so I'm going to be out for a few days."
Oh my God.
Yeah, so there was a lot of people who didn't know about this thing,
It was actually top.
Yeah.
It was top secret.
Yeah.
It was kept. It was top secret, and I
Yes.
guess it was released just around the time of Jaws. So
And it was
yeah,
Howard
eventually,
Sackler who connected it to Quint. It wasn't in the book, that I know.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
'cause
Yeah,
Quint
there
did it.
is
what's his name?
there's a
Also had
great movie
a
about the
crack at it too.
Indianapolis. There's
Um,
a great movie about it. The biggest error that people complain about with Jaws and that story, I mean, I think it's picking nits because this is a movie about sharks, and the way the story is told, it has so much emotional impact that by the time Quint is done telling it, the other two look like they're not sure whether to walk away and be alone for a while, or they're just going to burst into tears right now. The fact of the matter is that there were a lot of sailors who died of exposure,
Yeah.
not from shark attack, and it's one of the reasons people, like, I want to know what happened to the crew of the Indianapolis. Don't tell me to go look at a fictional story from a fictional movie. Well, now, yes, that's technically true if you want the actual history. The reality is that a lot of men died, uh, of the men who went in the water from
It's
the
800.
Indianapolis, and it was sheer dumb luck that they were spotted. That is true in both in reality and in the story. So they were picked up, but the sun was so unrelenting, and most of the sailors had lost their hats on their way off the Indianapolis. So their heads were uncovered, and they were dying of sunstroke.
Yeah, they died of exposure and sunstroke, and then that drew in the sharks, and then
Right.
it all became
yes.
like this
Then a
chain
lot of
reaction
people
thing,
died
yeah.
from the sharks. Yes, from the sharks attacking. So it's not that the sharks didn't attack sailors. It certainly happened, but the 800 men, whatever. I'm going to pick the numbers. I don't know. I don't remember the quote exactly.
There was
But,
just over 1,000 men on the boat.
800 died, I think.
800
Was it
died.
800?
Yeah,
I think it was
leaving
800.
I think it was just under 200 still surviving. So yeah.
Yeah, and they were
it was about
overdue when
800.
no one. I was just gonna say no one followed up on them being overdue. So there's a whole history and story about what happened to
There
the
is.
captain and
There's
I mean,
actually a
Quint does a
movie.
pretty good job of giving you the small version of it, because that's the thing. At that time, not many people had known about that story, like we were saying, and that's why. Again, I apologize if it wasn't Peter Benchley's housekeeper. It was somebody else's housekeeper attached.
No, it
to
was
the,
it was back. I just watched the documentary tonight,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was the.
No, it
his
wasn't. Now I
housekeeper,
just
yeah.
remembered. Actually, sure, it was one of the producers. It was Howard Zanuck. Actually, I think it was. Now that I think about it, it was in an interview with him. It could have been him or Benchley, but it was one of
I
those
think it was,
two people.
it doesn't matter, but it was
Yeah,
someone
but
very
yeah. The
close
whole
to
point
the-
is they didn't know how their
yeah.
son had died, and they were on the Indianapolis. So that they
Yeah.
Anyway.
implying that they had just saw the movie and now they found out for the first time what the fuck happened to their kid. So
Right.
like that
And
was
it's
the
something
first
like-
time that's yeah.
Yeah, it's something. It ends with something, and it's a really weird thing because he's not telling this story to shock them. He's telling them to make a point, and he finishes up with, "I'm just going to pick it. It's 1,100 men went in the water, 300 men came out, sharks got the rest." June,
We delivered
June
the
20,
bomb.
we delivered the.
That's one of the
at least we
scenes that makes
delivered the
that
bomb.
movie, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
and that
then
was
he
the thing
looks-
is
But wait a minute. Now it makes the point. His last line of that monologue is, "Anyway, Chief, I'll never wear a life preserver again."
Mhm.
yeah.
That's the point of the story. It's why Quint refuses to wear a life jacket.
Well, it's much
'Cause
more
he
than that. That is
refuses to
part of
be-
it too.
Yeah,
But it's also why he has this vendetta against the shark, right? It's this
yes,
pent up thing that he's had ever since then. And that's why he's
Right.
relentless at the end in that Captain Ahab thing where he just won't let the shark go, right? Like, because they get to that point
right.
where they're like, let's just go back now. Like, this is
Yeah.
getting too intense. Yeah.
the engine's blowing up. The boat is taking on water, and but yeah, the point is that Quint, Quint arrived at the point from that story, from having been on the Indianapolis, that either he's going to kill the shark or the shark is going to kill him.
Or both, yeah. Which is kind of what happens in the book, is both of them die at the same time.
I mean, he's got extreme guilt surviving what happened. And
Yes.
he doesn't feel like he should be alive. And he's got this hatred in his heart for these things. And I think he's looking to die because look at from the beginning of the movie, he's telling the radio, oh, we haven't seen anything yet. We just caught a couple of stripers. We'll be home for dinner. Over and out. And like he's lying. He bashes the fucking radio in, and he's like, no, we're not.
They're certifiable.
We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah, he's
throws
bound.
them the life vest. He doesn't give a damn whether Brody or Hooper survive. He's gonna kill this damn shark.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And
But,
Captain Ahab is an excellent comparison.
Well, that's who he becomes by the end of the book, basically, too.
By the end of the book, end of the movie, both.
And the movie, though, it gives him so much more, though, and that's why the Indianapolis story is such a big deal. And I know, Gary, you were going to say something about the Indianapolis there, too, I think, but unless you lost your train of thought.
I was just making a comment on his speech. I mean, really, Shaw, if you look, Hooper's finally connecting with Shaw when they're talking about their scars and stuff, and he doesn't want to tell him the story. Because he starts kind of making fun of the tattoo. He's like, don't tell me, mother.
Yeah.
And you look at Shaw's face and he's like, oh shit, I got to talk about this.
Well, not just
That's
that. Dreyfuss, you look at his face too, because then Dreyfuss knows.
Yeah, he does.
He
knows
clearly
what happened.
has an idea what happened, and that's when he kind of goes, oh shit.
Yeah, he goes, oh, you were on the USS Indianapolis, as in, oh shit, I should have kept my mouth shut.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like now I stepped in it. Yeah,
there's some other interesting things in that film, like or in that scene that I noticed, and if you look at the table with the dinner, they have their meals on the table. There's only one plate that's completely uneaten, and it's Brody's because he's seasick.
Yeah, he's seasick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of little details like that trained actors will hone. They hone their character while people are waiting for a damn shark to work. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of depth of and
it's probably the production bleeding into the movie at that point.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it could be fucking
sick for real, right? Yeah.
That boat.
I'm not gonna eat the meal.
Yeah, no, that boat out there with chumming for a shark. Do you all know what chum is?
Yeah, it's just fish guts. Yeah. The leftovers. Yeah.
Swap.
It's worse than that, because we used to fish with fish like that for stripers on the Cape Cod Canal at like 2 a.m. My father-in-law would go to the local bait shop and buy these whole menhaden. They're not edible fish to human beings. They're only for bait. And he would take this bucket. Something like that. I don't know any other word for the fish. And he'd put it in his garage, a bucket of these fish. And he'd put it in his garage a day before we're supposed to go in the, spring, the late spring. And his garage would get to be about 90 degrees inside. And these fish would sit in there. And okay, it's time to go fishing. It's 2 a.m. Tide's going to turn at 2 a.m. We need to be at the Cape Cod Canal at 2. That means we need to leave at 12:30 or 1 o'clock from where he lived. And when we drive out to a spot on the Cape Cod Canal, he'd pick the spot for the night. And he'd get that thing out of the car, out of the trunk. And you had to chop a 2-inch section of it vertically and put a massive hook through it for fishing for stripers, because illegal stripers 29 inches or 30 inches long. It's a big fish. And you use this big chunk of bait, and the smell, I could not get the smell of that god-awful fish off my hands for 2 days. No matter how often I washed my hands with soap. So chum is rotten fish guts.
Rotten fish
It
guts, yeah.
stinks. And
Yeah.
if you're seasick and you're kneeling in the back of a boat, shoveling this crap over the side with the wind blowing it
Hooper
up into
drives
your
the
face.
boat, Chief.
That's right. Let somebody else come down here and shovel this shit for a while. Oh,
Hooper
man, do I
drives the
feel
boat.
for him.
Yeah, well, no, it's funny. It's because everybody, whether they were crew or cast that had to work on the water, the famous story goes, everybody got seasick at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and the
what's
funniest
interesting?
one.
Sorry,
go ahead, Gary. No, please.
Well, Anthem 21X in the chat is pointing out. He asked, "Did Brody even eat after he saw the Kintner kid die?" And the answer is no, because there's the scene where he's at dinner. He didn't touch his food. Remember, he's drinking, and then he refuses food after that. That's a very
he doesn't
interesting
eat at
thing.
all.
There's a lot of nutrition in liquor.
That's true. High calories. A lot of calories. Yeah, a lot of calories.
It's not just that he doesn't eat; he's on camera refusing to eat, which is that's an interesting choice because he's just absolutely sickened by all this stuff. That's wow.
Yeah,
he blames himself for what happened to the Kittner, the Kittner boy. Alex
Well, he
Kittner,
does
so.
fully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the documentary time was interesting. The actress who played the mom said, people always were asking, "Can you slap me? Can you slap me?" The famous scene where she slaps Chief Brody, and she said, "Well, as of last year, and that's it. I've slapped my last Jaws fan." But
she's like, "Yeah, it's odd because it's usually young men of a certain age."
I want to be slapped.
But just to finish up my stories, everybody at one time or another had gotten seasick, and one of the most famous one was when Robert Shaw got seasick. Because I guess the funny thing was, it was the one time Richard said he ever saw this Goliath of a man was just as soft as a kitten for
you were going to say it was the one time he ever saw him sober, but that was
that too, because because for those who know, famously, Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss did not get along until the Indianapolis scene, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, maybe. But so like Robert was just fucking sick as hell, sick as fuck, and he had one line he couldn't get out, and it was, "Hooper, ain't you watching him?" And so they said that here they were on the boat, and of course they're doing the whole sea thing back and forth, and they're trying to work Robert out on and it literally took him like 20 minutes to get him out on the seat, and he's like literally doing the whole thing, because he's like, everything aches when you're seasick, so he's just easing him down in the seat, and it took him like forever to get him ready, and he's just sitting there looking like he's ready to die, and then all of a sudden you hear Steven Spielberg go, "Action!" And then all of a sudden Robert Shaw jumps up. He goes, "Hooper, goddamn it, ain't you watching him?" And then he falls over, and that was it. He's like, that was. He said every ounce of energy he had, he put into that one shot, and that was all he was getting at. But that's the one you see in the movie.
Wow.
Are you going to talk, Chom? Are you going to talk about how many takes it took to do the Indianapolis speech?
That's okay. So we can kind of get into that. I want to do real quick before we get into that. I want to do the memorabilia here, because you got some really cool shit.
Oh yeah,
and then we can get this off the screen here.
Let's see the
so
cool
you've got
stuff.
the light, of course, which is the one that Richard Dreyfuss uses along with these goodies.
Is that with the head when he's underwater with the head?
An interesting story about that Daryl Allen bug light. If you watch Jurassic Park, that's the flashlights that they're using when they're running around. What's her name? Who's the blonde gal? She's running around. Yeah, Laura Dern. She's running around when they're looking for when I think it's when they find Ian Malcolm, but they're using the same lights and they painted them green. And I found them at Universal. I found them at Universal Studios, and they were Daryl Allen bug lights. So I guarantee the lights from Jaws were at the prop house at Universal, and they just grabbed them for Jurassic Park and spray painted them.
And or Steven knew that they were and said
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Then you got the knife here. Is that a real knife or is it just a stage knife?
Yeah, that's a real U.S. diver's knife.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's the red thing on the left there? What's that?
That's the little.
That's the flasher, the Neo flasher.
Antiperspirant.
Okay. Yeah.
The antiperspirant.
That's a shark repellent. Antiperspirant.
Here's Batman's shark repellent. No, just kidding. This is actually the
is that an EPIRB?
EPIRB?
Yeah.
Put that cork back
Emergency
on
position.
right now.
What did you say?
Emergency position. And what was that? 70s?
I said, put that cork on back on right now. There's a
Yeah.
cork lying there, the harpoon.
No, it's an emergency beacon if your boat sinks. It's kept upside down on a loose rack on the boat with a string that attaches it. It's
They had
not
one on
very
the
hard to
Poseidon.
break.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and yeah, and if the boat goes down, the EPIRB pops out of its little holder, it turns upright, floats to the surface, and when it turns upright, a strobe light comes on, and it starts transmitting the GPS position of the EPIRB to satellites, and the Coast Guard monitors that frequency because the satellites rebroadcast it. So if your boat sinks and you have an EPIRB, when the
You don't
EPIRB
get eaten
pops
by
to
a
the
shark
surface,
first.
right?
Yeah, it does
and
put
try
out-
not to get eaten by a shark in the meantime.
Yeah.
So if
Puts
you
out a
have to
signal
leave
as
the
well.
boat, if you have to leave the boat on the life raft, you have the EPIRB on the boat, and the search for you will start where your EPIRB is, where your boat went down, and then they'll go in circles, expanding circles around it, looking for you. It's an emergency beacon in case of
Gotcha.
major emergency. Otherwise, it's just a strobe light in case somebody gets close enough to see it. But an EPIRB's not cheap. But having crewed on a 42-foot sailboat for a number of years, they had one, and their attitude was, I want the Coast Guard looking for my butt if this boat goes down. So I spent the money on the EPIRB.
Gotcha. Well, I will say I got to agree with Brian on this. This should have a cork on it because there's
It
poison
should
in here, Gary.
Put that cork back on.
Put it
You
in.
get that needle through his skin. So yeah, it was asked in the chat, where did you get all this stuff from? I'm sure each one has like a different story. Yeah.
As I responded, opportunity and luck, and that's all I'll say.
Okay, yeah, and that's fair. We don't want to.
Yeah, some people have given me this stuff over the years, and I can't really say their names, but they're great people, and they've But yeah, those are actual
screen used ones. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Those are actual a full set of teeth from the original shark. The shark dart repeater is a reproduction. You can get that on eBay.
Okay.
That guy did a really nice job on that. The mask is just of the same era. That's not screen used. But the teeth
it's not
are
the
real.
actual ones. Okay.
No,
no. So you sent me one of these. That's kind of the same thing of this. This is awesome, and I've showed it off before too, and I have it actually up above my metal.
I had to
Jaws
send you a set of teeth.
poster. Yeah, it's awesome.
Those teeth are awesome. I love that. My dentist should have those.
Knocking over my gut.
That'd be great.
Dentist office. Yeah,
that would be good. That's very funny.
Yeah, they should have that'd be awesome. So the Indianapolis speech is definitely one of the more interesting parts of the story. And we can start there, I guess, if you guys want to, since we already got onto that. Because that took a few days to shoot, as was asked before, because it was originally written by Howard Sackler, but it wasn't quite what Spielberg was looking for. So then he handed it off to John Milius, who turned in an 8-page version of it. And Robert Shaw's like, I can't sit here be telling this story for like 10 minutes. Right? Like it just can't. I can't. He's like, do you mind, Steven, if I go and I work on this just a little bit? And Steven's like, no, go right ahead. Of course, Shaw has, worked on plenty of stuff before. So this was, fine with him.
It was a good writer in his own right, Robert Shaw.
Exactly. That's my point. Yeah.
Novelist
so I think
and playwright.
Yeah, so I think he got it down to like 5 or 6 pages or something like that, or a tight 4 or 5, somewhere in there. And the first night they went to film it, he asked Steven, he goes like, look, I just want to, because, as we were brought up already, joked a few times before, Robert Shaw is a well-known drinker. he was known to tie one on. And he asked Steven, do you mind if I just get one drink before this? Just one drink. That's all I need, just to kind of loosen me up just a little bit or something like that. He said. Steven's like, yeah, no problem. And Steven said, I regret that because
one drink. It was a bottle of whiskey, probably.
It was, basically one bottle of whiskey. So by the time they went to shoot it, he was so fucking drunk they couldn't get it to work. So the next day, I guess Shaw was just embarrassed as hell, and he's like, please give me one more try at it. And he's like, sure, no problem. And then he nailed it that second night. But yeah, like the only thing they get wrong in that speech is the date. They get the month of the date wrong. It's actually July, not June. That's for some reason I don't know why they never fixed it or nobody ever caught it. But at that time, I could understand you didn't have the internet to just go look shit up.
Yeah.
So Sackler was probably going off of either memory or something like that, and then Milius may have had something to go off of too. But who knows? Maybe the date was wrong in whatever history book that he had or something like that. It's hard to say.
And if you were collecting something that old, like you get June or July, it's like you could make that mistake too as a sailor, right? Yeah, But that scene just nails them. That scene was, they talk about in the documentary where he's like, that's when we had a movie, when we knew that scene landed, because they had so many problems with the shark that we've talked about, and that's why this movie works so well, because the drama, the tension between the characters, it's just so exciting all around, and the people are real life people too. Like they're not, Brody's just a regular, what is he? And supposed to be a New York cop that's just taking this gig in the summer. He doesn't know his way on the water, and everyone's just such a believable character, and it just works so well. Well, the other interesting thing too, I was just watching the documentary, was Hooper's supposed to die in the cage, and just watching how they had a little person in the cage. They had the idea to let's shrink the cage down, and then that scene that the shark is in, like they said, the stunt people said that if he had been in the cage, I don't blame him. He was scared to get back in the cage, and he delayed. And then the shark came by, went over the top of the cage, and dragged it to the bottom, which is the scene that's used in the movie. But he's not in the cage, and the stunt guy's like, "Yeah, if he'd been in there, he would have died. We have no way of saving him," because they realized when they shrank the bottles of air down, like the poor guy only had 8 minutes of air because it was like a minute, a half-size tank or a small tank.
Yeah, so, his ones were really small though.
Yeah. But that's why Hooper's Dreyfuss character survives, because they wanted to use that scene, which was filmed in Australia by the husband and wife shark experts there.
It's kind of a Spielbergism though, to have a character that's usually dies end up living. Now it's become a thing.
Yeah.
Not only that, he saves animals more often than not. Because it was brought to my attention for the first time. I didn't realize this, but Pippet lives. Did you guys know this?
Yep.
No.
Spielberg let the dog live. And there is a scene that got cut that we would have seen that, but if you watch the scene where Brody is running over the bridge when the shark attacks the guy in the lake, in the estuary there, you can see Pippet sitting on the fucking bridge.
Oh, yeah, because I'm like, they're not going to kill the dog, right?
Well, because the thing is,
everyone's asking who Pippet is. That's the dog that in the beginning of the movie they think.
And I'm pretty sure it's in the
shark.
book, because it's been quite a few years since I've read the book. But the whole thing is and it was brought up earlier that this is based on the Jersey attacks. And what we've found out in more recent years is that it was a bull shark. And the book and the movie tried to similarly go in that same order. The only difference is in the book there was a dog that supposedly got ate too. In the movie though, they let the dog live. And that's Spielbergism.
The dog's just like a bite-sized snack to the.
It is. Well, that's
the shark.
It was a lead up to the
like
guy in the estuary.
Popcorn chicken type thing.
Or no, Pippin got ate right before the Kintner boy, didn't he? Which scene was that?
Right before.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So
just moments
either way.
Before. Yeah.
Yeah. It's.
That's hilarious. I never knew that.
Yeah. Anyhow, but I guess Spielberg even addressed it that he didn't want Pippet to die. So Pippet does not die in the movie.
So
now I can sleep tonight now.
That's right.
Yes.
I don't have the depth of trivia you guys have, but there is one fascinating Robert Shaw piece of trivia that I've always liked.
Sure.
It isn't the first time he sang that song on screen. The farewell
Oh, yeah?
Farewell and Adieu to You Fair Spanish Ladies. It's not the first time he sang that on screen. He was the star of a British television show in the 50s called The Buccaneers about pirates, and he sings it on that, and the footage is still available on YouTube. So, like 25 years before, or he'd sang it on screen, the same
It's probably
song.
where he got it from.
Well, maybe, yeah. It's an old British naval song, and yeah, so you can find that footage of that show, The Buccaneers, is on YouTube, and they've got that clip of Robert Shaw singing that song. It's quite neat.
Well, I'm
so
sure
people have spliced it together, so he's duetting with himself.
So that means it's probably public domain, right? Like, because you said
It
it's an
could
old...
be.
Yeah,
Well, I think-
that's the thing. Because
I think Amazon MGM. I think Amazon owned the rights to the Buccaneers. I don't know how many episodes exist because it was 1950s, but that clip exists, which is good.
Because I know Spielberg was really always worried about that, because he was even worried about the Here Lies Mary Lee. She died at the age of 103, kept her virginity until she was 15. Not a bad record for this vicinity. Like, Spielberg was all worried about that too. He's like, is that from a song or something I got to clear? He's like, no, because I'm pretty sure I read it off of a gravestone.
Yeah. That's funny.
Which is funny because
Right.
how much stuff, because this is one of those movies that I will argue is better than the book, because they're almost two different animals, and it's almost sacrilege to say
never
this.
read the book.
Well, it's a different
I've
animal.
read it, yeah.
And
I've heard it.
I've read the book. This movie is one of those definitely better than the book.
Mary Jane from Jamaica signaling that the
So
Carolines
was
should
it
be due
not-
here on Wednesday. With the ladies. Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. Signal message.
So there you go.
Wow.
So 1957, that was from.
Wow.
So he's an Irish guy saying goodbye in French to a Spanish woman.
Something like that.
Something like that. So it's like Highlander.
Complicated. It's something like Highlander, yeah. Just think Highlander.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Highlander, that's all.
Because
Yeah.
Shaw is actually English.
Yeah.
Although I think he.
I thought he was Irish, but I guess, yeah.
Well, I think
he was buried in Ireland. He loved Ireland. I know he was.
He
buried-
loved it, but he was born and brought up in England. Although he lived in the Orkney Islands of Scotland when he was a kid, which is about as far from movies as you could get. And then he moved to Cornwall, which is exactly the other end of the country. So, well traveled.
We have another guest joining us who's a big Jaws fan, Mr. Valiant Renegade, who sent over a lovely crowd of you folks. Thank you for being here.
Big old Jaws fan. Watched it last night again. It's great, man. It's one of those movies that never gets old, ever.
Perfect movie. So yeah, Robert Shaw was actually not the first person to be thought of for Quint. In fact, he wanted Lee Marvin to play the role initially, amongst some others. And Brody was another one that was tough to get casted. I think he asked Gene Hackman and a few other people, and they all turned it down.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran into Roy Scheider at a party, I guess. And after listening to the story of the whole thing, he said to Steven, "Well, why not me?
I'm an actor."
Yeah. So that's how Scheider got the part. And then, of course, Lorraine Gary was the first one cast because she was the wife of the fucking head of the studio.
Yep.
And she was pissed,
surprise.
taking
Yeah.
it back to the book and how the book is a much different animal. And getting back to my original point I was going to make is she was pissed because her subplot got deleted.
Yeah.
Wasn't
That
there
happens a
Barry
lot in
Cooper or
those
something,
days.
Her getting
Yeah, she's
harpooned
like-
by Cooper.
Yeah, she didn't get harpooned by Hooper. That was why she was upset. She's like, I didn't get my sex scene with Richard Dreyfuss.
Did you know that
I am
Oliver
so
Reed-
glad they took that chapter out.
Was more than a chapter. It lingers through the entire fucking book. Because, like, okay, here's the thing with the book.
Let's
And this is
go.
where
Wanna hear
I will
it.
say this is a rare thing you will hear a Jaws fan say, but I would not be against like a mini series adaptation of Jaws where it's specifically chapter by chapter of the book. Because it is such a different story than Jaws, the movie that Steven Spielberg gave us, that I don't think too many people would have a problem with it after it actually came out, because you would see how different they are. Because the book is about you got Quint, who very much in the book, Gary, I think is ready to die. He's a man.
Oh, yeah.
He's old man. He's an older man. You got Brody, who's the middle-aged man, and you got
Hooper,
who's the young man, and that's the dynamic of the three. And they're not it's not the same dynamic that's in the movie. In the book, it's a completely different dynamic, because it's more of Hooper and Brody who have like an animosity with each other, because Brody's already kind of figuring shit out that he's sleeping with his wife. So you have this whole thing going on in the background with Hooper. We lost Valiant. He'll probably be back if not. Where Hooper was sleeping with his wife, and this kind of whole thing of the young generation meeting up with the middle-aged man who's not living up to things anymore, but he's looking up to this older man who's like accomplished all these things, and he's on the verge of trying to be like a Captain Ahab type, all while having this mob thing going on in the background with the mayor. So there's a whole nother subplot going on with why the mayor doesn't want to close the beaches, is because he owes the mafia a bunch of fucking money.
Sorry.
Oh, Tom, make sure you don't pitch that to Netflix, because it'll no longer be a great white shark.
It'll be a great black shark.
It'll be a great black shark now. It's,
with black magic, black girl magic.
It'll be part of the seahorse now. It'll be a pink seahorse.
So
Tom,
so go ahead, Gary.
Did you know that Oliver Reed was up for Quint?
Was he? No.
That was another name. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he had the drinking. He had the drinking credentials. That's true.
He would have murdered
That's
both
for
Roy
sure.
Scheider
Oh,
and
yeah.
Richard Dreyfuss
Well,
on
I
that
think-
boat. He would have
and I
murdered
think
Was he the
Lee
guy
Marvin's-
did he owe millions of dollars in back taxes? Was he the actor or one of the actors?
Oh, Shaw did. Shaw
was the one who took it for that.
He owed a lot of money. In
Was it
taxes.
Oliver though who said that I'd rather go fishing than shoot this movie or something like that?
Like
I think
that.
was the one. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I do my fishing for real.
Oliver
I think
Reed
was
may
his-
have owed a lot of money in taxes. He just wouldn't remember. He wouldn't know. He wouldn't
Right.
have a clue.
But anyhow, so like Lorraine Gary though, so she was the first one to cast, and she is great though. I mean, nepotism aside, she is great. But it was kind of smart for Steven to cast her, because I think if she wasn't in the movie, then the movie would have got shut down.
You know, it's kind of funny. Lorraine Gary is probably the casting choice that allowed Kate Capshaw years later to get it with Temple of Doom. So it's like, you gave it to Lorraine 10 years ago.
They weren't even
Why?
dating
I'm
then.
your
That-
wife now.
They weren't even
Pretty
they
much
weren't
it.
even married.
Wait a minute,
yet. They
wait a
didn't get
minute,
married
wait a
till,
minute.
like, later,
Valiant.
way after that, yeah.
Valiant, are you saying that we can blame Jaws for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? Oh, please.
Well, I'm not
I
going
think
to
he's
say
stretching
blame.
it.
I'm not saying that Kate Capshaw was bad in Temple. I'm talking about the casting choice. You know, I mean, there was even Family Guy had to make a joke on it. Oh, you sleeping with the rector? You know, it's like.
Okay, if you won't do it, I'll do it. Kate Capshaw in Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom was terrible. God,
It's a pure
terrible was a
coincidence.
little
No,
harsh.
nepotism doesn't exist. It's pure coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't help that Spielberg was like Sid Sheinberg's little golden boy at that time too. That helped him out. But
Do you think James Gunn's wife is secure in any future DC movies? I'm surprised.
she's very fine where she's at. She's got no problems, I don't think.
Yeah.
But so yeah, to kind of like finish off the cast, they brought in Carl Gottlieb, and he actually had a bigger part in the book, but he sadly also, his job was to basically minimalize his part and write the rest of the script, because he was brought on to help write dailies and background dialogue and help out in that respect. And he's another one of the guys who did a lot of the writing on the script, and he famously wrote the Jaws log too as well, which is a great book to check out if you haven't. So he was one, and there was a lot of other locals, as we brought up before, besides Ben Gardner, that filled out the cast. And there's tons of locals who always have stories, as I'm sure Red Shirt, you've probably heard many from a lot of the locals around there about the fun of shooting Jaws. In fact, there was a movie that took some inspiration from the shooting of the Jaws films. Do you guys know what movie that was?
Mm-mm.
John
Yeah,
Cusack is in it, and Demi Moore is too.
One Crazy Summer.
That's right.
Foam. Instead of Jaws, it's Foam. The rabid dolphin.
Foam, the
right?
rabid
Yeah.
dolphin. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what that was making fun of how the people in that area had to deal with the shooting of Jaws and Jaws 2, basically like back to back, practically. Like it was like, yeah, they had like I think a year or two in there to breathe, but like just
And
how
that
that was.
Godzilla in that movie too, right? Was
Yeah,
it
that was
Godzilla
that
in
one part with
movie?
Godzilla. Yeah,
Bobcat. Yeah.
can't get this thing on the head. Ah. So let's see what you guys are talking about out there. We got some great super chats coming in here. We got Imaginative Hobbyist sending in 2 and says, happy 50th to one of the best of the best. It is the best of the best if you ask some of us. Grand Admiral Adam says, I literally finished watching Jaws 10 minutes before the stream started. I didn't know you were going to talk about it tonight before I started watching it. Well, surprise, surprise. And then the Imaginative Hobbyist comes in again and says, Percy Rodriguez's narration is still chilling. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water.
Yeah, that was a great trailer.
And then Six sends in 20. Thank you so much, Six. And I wish you were here. I think she had to work tonight. So she says, happy 50th anniversary. Amazing film. I have this on VHS and not divisive at all. I don't think it is really. Looking forward to catching the replay. Have a great evening talking about Tom's favorite movie. Hi, Nick, Mark, Gary, Redshirt, and Andy. Of course, she sent this before Valiant and 70s got here. So
all good.
I'm sure she would have included you guys as well.
It's all good, man.
Dark King sends in 5 and says female white sharks are typically larger than males. This is true. So the shark was probably female. Was Jaws' early example of girl boss film? Oh, just kidding. Well, we know for sure that the one in part 3 was a bitch. She was a mean one. She's the biggest of them all. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I kind of like, I love, we'll get to Jaws 3 in just a bit here. We're going to move on to some sequels here soon, Nick, but we'll just to give you a heads up, but we're going to talk a little bit more about Jaws. Of course, we got,
I like what I'm hearing. Cause like, I've watched this movie a lot, but, there's obviously, I know like the casual things about, but hearing all this lore and Drovey theme guys is absolutely amazing. I get to hear it like basically as a fan, but on the panel is really killer. So
is Bruce actually a Brucette? Is that? I don't know. Actually,
wait, you mean does he actually identify as a Brucette?
That's true. Well, maybe it was a female who identifies as a male named Bruce. I don't know.
Is his last name Jenner?
Set him
Bruce
up,
identifies as Caitlin now.
Caitlin, yeah. Now Bruce is Caitlin.
Oh no!
Action Com says the man who designed Shark also designed the squid in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Can we still see a still of the squid? Oh yeah, that was what's his face?
Bob Matty,
Bob Matty. Yes.
Yeah.
20,000 Leagues.
Well, what a classic movie that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Irwin Allen, wasn't it? Irwin Allen? Did he do those?
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea?
Yeah.
That's Jules Verne.
Yep.
A little bit
No,
before,
but Irwin Allen
Towering Inferno.
Irwin Allen was the producer, wasn't he?
Producer. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was Walt Disney.
Was it?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, Bob Matty did that, and they turned to Bob because he'd actually been retired for a while. Because and that was the other thing about Spielberg and George Lucas specifically, is they kind of brought back and created a lot of this idea of special effects films, right? Because there hadn't been special effects films made for quite a few years, and that's where Bob had been kind of basically retired, and they drug him out of retirement to help him make the Shark. Because he's the only guy who kind of knew how to do this shit, right, Gary? I mean, that was my understanding of it. Because
I was thinking of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Got the wrong underwater show. That's Irwin Allen.
Pneumatics, I guess, too. The first was electronic, and then they went. Yeah, he was the expert, and they used the pneumatics and cylinders and air. That's why I guess that boat had all the barrels that Gary was talking about. Was just to all control the shark, but
yeah.
it ended up working out pretty well in that last few scenes. I guess towards the end, then they got the shark working a little bit, right? So
I think Jaws has, or Bruce or Caitlin, whatever we want to call her now, has like a total of maybe 4 minutes, if that, not even of screen time in the original Jaws.
Yeah,
if that. I'm actually probably
Very
being
little.
very generous. Because like the first shot we see him is like 52 minutes, I think, into the movie, and that's when we see the side of his face when he bites on the one guy's leg or whatever. And I think
that's the
it.
scariest shot to me, when it's under the water, but you can
Yeah.
still see it. That's terrifying.
Yeah, and it looks the most real in that shot. And then the next shot we see him in is, I think, you can barely see him in the Kintner boy shot, even though I think there's one quick shot of the shark coming out, but it's more like you can see like the silhouette, and that's about it.
You know why Bruce was always biting people's legs off and then spitting them out? Because he was lactose intolerant.
Oh,
Oh man.
And then Eric Wimberg just sends in 5 and sends in sharks. I can hear this. It goes dun 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 dun. Action Com says, "What are the top cliches that the Jaws movie repopularized, or popularized or repopularized?" That's a good question. See, here's the thing: is Spielberg made Jaws with a lot of the Hitchcock-isms, right? So, I mean, if anything, it evoked a lot of Psycho and like the push-pull focus shot with like
the dolly
Brody.
pan. Yeah, the
dolly
dolly
pan or whatever you call it. That kind of a thing. Gosh, what else? I mean, otherwise he invented the underwater, like water level kind of photography thing. Like you hadn't seen
they had that
before,
really
maybe.
cool camera that was in a box and was like half in the water, half out of the water. And you're right, it was very Hitchcockian, where you'd see all the people's legs, and that's what really scared you too, because you think you're the point of view of the shark, you're looking for the shark, even though the shark's not there, Bruce is not working. But that made those scenes even scarier. Like first time you watch Psycho, right? Who took a shower with the shower curtain open, or like the door open so you can watch, same thing going back into the water for the first time after you see Jaws. So it's just, so brilliant. It's minimalist filmmaking, but it's just brilliant, great vision to do it that way.
I should have known with Action Com, he always has an ulterior motive. He sent me here the cliches. First victim in horror movies always starts with the first victim. That's true. Resisting closing the beaches, the powers that be refusing to take precautions. That's also kind of true. The little shark. Horror films have a false ending where you think the terror is over. This is true. Expendable yahoos. Expendable yahoos. Horror films have drunken yahoos who provide victims for the monster. Can we go home now?
What's your name? Chrissy! What are you going to do? Swimming!
Destroying the radio. Horror
That's
films sometimes have crazy hero that destroys the means of calling for backup. Yep. Yep. The hero, that or the villain does. One of the two. You're right. Yes. Yep. The heroes come together. The point in the horror film when separate characters come together to take down the monster. That's not true though.
Yeah.
It is in a way. Yes, they all get together to go out in the boat, but when it comes down to it, it's Brody who has to face off. At least in the film, it's Brody that has to face off with the shark. In the book, it's kind of anticlimactic.
In Jaws 2, you have the kids having sex get killed, so
it has even more horror cliches.
Kids should never have sex in movies. In horror
I've
movies.
said that before. Never. I've said that Jaws 2 is basically takes all the rules of the best slasher sequels, and that's why I think it's an undersung horror or sequel. So is there anything more?
The stupid people who provide victims for the shark. My favorite line was, it's basically Hooper's first line. He goes, gentlemen, you're overloading that boat. He walks back down the dock. Very matter-of-factly says, they're all going to die.
Yeah.
You missed one important thing though in between there. He goes, you guys know any good restaurants on the island? Yeah, you walk Straight ahead.
Walk to the end of the pier and keep going or whatever.
Yeah, walk straight ahead.
Yes.
And that was ad lib.
They're all gonna
They're
die.
all gonna die.
But you know, the great thing is in that scene, they flipped it around, right? All the guys out there were making fun of Hooper. You know, he's this and that, and then they get to the scene where they catch the red herring tiger shark.
Yeah,
and he's like,
what?
it's a monster. What is this? It's a tiger shark. A what?
Oh, what?
A tiger shark. Yeah, it's gonna split it to. It's like they put a shot in there deliberately to make the Islanders look like retards. I mean, like that was the point. It's like because they were. It was like they were these stupid idiots out there.
It's kind of more of a guy thing,
their,
especially in that era.
Their wife's
right?
pot roast on a chain into the water to catch Jaws. You know, it's like
Well, once they said there's a bounty on the shark, is that in cash or check?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here is the answer.
You're
to
not
going to
come.
He says,
Well, I like the other one. The one other one I like from the same basic scene is, look, Chief, we just have to cut the thing open. Everything that it's eaten for the last several days will still be in there, and we'll be able to tell. And the mayor comes over with his usual aplomb and says, "You'd love that, wouldn't you? See that Kittner boy spill out all over the dock."
Yeah.
So they're sitting at home, and he goes,
Now look, guys. We're not going to start this with some kind of half-ass autopsy on a fish.
Right. So bad. Think up there. We see them back in the kitchen, and he says, "Why don't we have one more glass of wine and then go cut that fish open?"
Can you do that?
You know, they're gonna have to be drunk to do it.
Yeah,
I'm the chief of police.
It's like I can do anything I want. I'm the chief of police.
Is that one of the barrels? Is that one of the barrels there?
It is.
It looks like it.
Mark,
Looks
before
like
you leave, here's the answer to the trivia question from earlier. Where do these pop up again in Jaws 2? There's two of them out front of the Brody household that are now planters.
I never noticed that. It's got a dent in it, but yeah, you're right. I guess
They're both there, and you can see them in like two shots. This is the shot where he comes home from being fired.
That's so funny. I never noticed that. In Jaws.
What you also don't know is that the
Oh,
top
my God.
half of Quint's torso was in that barrel.
So Mark has to leave us. So Mark, go ahead and plug your stuff real quick.
Yeah. So we'll be streaming a little bit on Sunday Night Geekery. So when this is over, head on over. We're just talking entertainment of the week and probably talking Jaws. And my brother-in-law is actually running the sound. He's a sound engineer, so he was working on Martha's Vineyard this week, and I'm waiting for pictures. He didn't get them yet, but he's running the sound for that show on the ocean there that they're screening Jaws on the 50th. So that's pretty cool. So just be talking.
Is John Williams doing the score live or something like that? Is that what's going on?
They have an orchestra playing the score live in front of on the beach there at Martha's Vineyard where they shot the movie.
Well, I know Richard Dreyfuss is there, and I think a bunch of the crew and other people.
And they've got a real great white shark is going to come and eat a few people.
So
Caitlin showed up, that's right.
He's under orders to bring me back some swag and get me some inside info. But
some will be distributed. All of it.
Yeah. So
Caitlin showed up to show off her rainbow-colored fin.
I painted my fin up with a rainbow color for this month. Oh, I didn't think about that.
He doesn't eat in June. It's too fruity.
All right. Well, this will lead people over to the show afterwards. Mark, thanks for being here.
Yep. Thank you. Yep. And what a great movie this is, and great to hang out with all you guys. And we're gonna need a bigger channel, right? Yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.
See you later, mate.
See you, Mark.
But
Later, Mark.
this
Good to see you.
But this is just a great production photo that I think really encapsulates.
Oh man.
Yeah. So they got this set of Jaws from one of the museums, and it's actually from, I believe, a 20-foot great white. So it's not even as big as Jaws, actually. That kind of gives you an idea.
That's all in camera? That's legit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's probably a bit ahead of them. Because, I mean, just to kind of,
Right, make it bigger.
Yeah, to make it look bigger. But, like, yeah. I mean, it's one of the most famous pictures, and I love it. It's a classic.
Very cool.
But of course, I mean, the movie became this sensation. And what's great is in that documentary that we keep talking about that Mark also saw earlier is you got the whole story of how it was going to be the biggest release in history. And they had so many orders for it, rentals, right? Like they had over 700 some theaters. And I know that sounds like very little, Valiant, right? How quaint, 700 some theaters.
Yeah,
right?
but back
that
then,
we're going to try
when
and
this
rent
movie
Jaws.
came out, that was like all of them.
Yeah, and they're like, we need to print more. We need to print more. And Sid's like, nope, cut it in half. I'm like, what? He's like, nope, cut it in half. Only send out 350.
Supply and demand. Look, and this was the great
This
thing
is what happened. And then you had
Exactly.
people that couldn't get into the show. It was sold out around the clock. People were lined
Fear
up
of
every
missing
show.
out.
Yep.
Wow.
Created it, but it ended up becoming the first blockbuster, the true blockbuster, created blockbuster. I mean, you had Exorcist, you had Godfather before that. It kind of prepared people for this. But Jaws just came with like an explosion. And it was this thing that everybody, like, you had to go see it. And what's funny is that all the press leading up to it was that this thing was going to be a huge disaster, right? Like everybody was talking about this thing like Heaven's Gate, or what's a more recent film, like The Flash. The Flash. Like everybody was talking about this movie like it was The Flash. Like they've been shooting it for 200 days. It's a fucking disaster. The shark didn't work. You know, this movie's going to suck. But it scared the fuck out of people. In fact, you'd hear stories about people having heart attacks during screenings and shit, right? And stuff like that. So,
well, this
like,
was back
I mean,
in the day when Hollywood was far more judicious with what it created and released ultimately, whereas today, and not just 2025, but arguably for the last probably 25, 30 years, getting close to it, it's been a spaghetti against the wall situation. And I mean, that was it. Back then, man, these studios, all they had was the film. There wasn't even home video rental yet back in the 70s. There wasn't streaming. There were not post-theatrical ancillary, massive capacity for additional revenues immediately after a film left a theater, or even 6 months down the line. Again, this was before really even Laserdisc was a thing, which it never was. Before Betamax, before VHS.
Jaws was so big that when Jaws 2 came out, they had to let people know this is a completely different movie.
Right.
This isn't Jaws being re-released.
Exactly. That's just it. This was back in the day when this was eventized, right? You had to go see this in the theater. And there were a fraction, maybe 15 or 20% of the number of screens back then that there are today, just even domestically. So you had more limited capacity. Supply and demand curves were radically different than 2025 or 2015 or 2005 or 2000 for that matter. When a movie went into a theater, again, it was an event. And this was long before the days even of 12-screen multiplexes and stuff like this that we have now. Most of these things were still singles. Hell, up until Hurricane Katrina, the Robert E. Lee Theater on Robert E. Lee, right next to this old Chinese restaurant, the China Rose, on the corner of Robert E. Lee and right up by West End in New Orleans. They still had a single-screen theater that had been there for ages. Now, it's been long gone. It's been gone now for 20 years since Katrina wrecked that whole area. But I remember even as a kid, all the way up until the late 80s, going and into the 90s, going to that theater. It's like they picked whatever the biggest movie they could get their hands on, and that was it. That's what you saw.
Yeah.
It's so different now because it's so easy just to slam the spaghetti against the wall. If it doesn't work, you've got a streaming contract. If it doesn't work, you sell international distribution rights. It's such a different dynamic. But this is why I don't know if Hollywood will ever see another era like it did in the 70s and into the 80s ever again. I don't think we will see it, not because that Hollywood can't push the reset button and start making nothing but just amazing stuff. And we always joke about how, oh my God, a terrible movie in 1985 would be an Oscar winner today in 2025. It's because the market has radically changed. You've had this total shift where, unfortunately, it's just never going to feel like it did when we grew up, all of us on this panel, going to see these things. And I wasn't around for Jaws. I was born in 79. But, I mean, I still remember how it used to work, and it sucks that we'll never have that. My kids will never have that. Their kids will never have that again because the market and the distribution models have so radically changed.
Yeah, and Valiant, it created excitement. I mean, I remember when I saw Jaws in 1974 or wherever that was. Was it 74? I was 10, 11 years old.
75, but
You
yeah,
had to wait. You knew it was coming, and it didn't. As you say, there wasn't as many screens, so I saw it in a local theater. I had to wait 2 or 3 weeks
In fact,
for
I
it to
think
get there.
Depending on where you were living at that time, like I know,
Yeah.
I think in London and the UK, I think they got it in the wintertime. I don't think they even got
Yeah.
it for the summer. But,
Yeah, and there was different release times internationally and so on, but you had to wait for it, and you knew it was out there somewhere, and you knew there was excitement about it, but you had to wait, and that made it special though when the excitement of actually getting in there and finally seeing it. I don't know if that excitement exists now.
No, it's a much different world.
Well,
but Andy, what you got here? You
it
met
is.
Richard. Looks like.
Yeah, this was Gary got us in this picture. He went and because he gave Mr. Dreyfus there a plaque with all the shark teeth on it.
Oh, so
Nice.
Richard has one of those too. Now I feel really cool.
Okay.
So I know who Gary and Andy are. Who's the old guy in the middle? Just kidding.
That's you.
That
You're
could
so
be
old
me.
you forgot shit.
It could be me. I wish it was.
I wish I would
can-
have got out to Martha Vineyard this weekend. But anyway, you were saying red shirt.
I can attest because I saw this in 75 in the theater, and it took weeks, maybe even 2 months for it to reach the point where I could get a ticket because the theater in my town back in the 70s was an old vaudeville type theater with a movie screen, and they had one movie.
Yep.
And in 77, even though there were started to become multiplexes, they were putting them in malls, there were more screens, the number of screens was going up and up and up and up. Star Wars had this kind of, you could not get a ticket for the first 2 weeks or something of Star Wars. People were camping out in the hopes of getting a ticket early in the morning. And sometimes they just put up a sign that says all tickets for tomorrow sold. And people would just pack up their camping gear and go home. So, I mean, it took a while, but it gives you a sense of the scale of this movie and Star Wars. This movie had it harder because it had fewer screens, but there were other movies in the 70s that did this kind of business and were this hard to get into.
There were fewer screens, but the theater you're describing was like my local theater. There was more seats. So when I saw Star Wars, it was a 2,000 seater theater.
Yeah, that was a much
2,000
different time.
and it was full.
Yeah, like
Right, because
let's not
now
even talk
instead of
about
having-
inflation.
Yeah, I
Go
was gonna
ahead.
say, now instead of having one screen in your local theater that had 2,000 seats, now you've got 10 screens that have
20
200
seats.
or
you're
75.
lucky.
depending-
200.
Right, exactly.
Doesn't it help
They
that the
used
seats
to
are much
cre-
bigger too now? Seats
Yeah.
are much bigger, roomier, for better.
That's
and
true.
worse.
They
Oh, yeah.
created back then, you had just as a natural order of things. It wasn't necessarily planned that way, but it's just the way it worked. You had a natural order of economic scarcity when it came to being able to go see a movie, especially of this scale.
Well, and
The
something you
closest
and
thing
I-
we have today is like a Broadway show. You have a hot Broadway
Right.
show. It's in one theater in New York. It's at the the Rogers Theater or the this theater or that theater,
Radio
and it's all
City.
this. Yeah. You sell out stuff. That's what you used to have with movies, but you had one theater in every town, even smaller towns, so they could show one thing at a time. You had the scarcity, and again, it goes back to. Studios were far more judicious with their decision making on what they would greenlight because there's only so many movies that can be running around the same time. There's only so much you can do. So you really, really, really had to make wise, creative, and business decisions to do this. That's basically been taken away. The closest thing we have in 2025 in terms of cinematic distribution is going to be the films that have to plan out far enough to where they can book the IMAX for screens for 2 weeks, or they can book the PLFs, the regular premium large format screens, the non-IMAX ones for 2 weeks at a time or something like this. But the problem is there's so much stuff out there. There's so much other opportunity. And the mindset that, well, I don't have to wait a year or 2 years or 3 years to see Jaws again. I'm going to see it in 60 to 90 days on streaming service. You know, it's changed. And even before streaming, it had been compressed. But
well, and on that
we'll never
note,
get this again. Yeah.
Yeah, on that note, we talk about this all the time, Valiant, and I know you got to leave here, but I want you to kind of see this, because this is basically what we're talking about. Back then, like, yeah, the movie would run for about 2 years in theaters at this point. But Jaws was actually so popular that it was one of the first films to be released on home video on CED. So, in fact, it came with the CED player a lot of times if you bought it.
Totally forgot about that crap.
Yeah, and it was also one of the first VHS and Laserdiscs also.
Yep.
But the big thing was when it was premiered the first time on
I
television.
still have my Jaws Laserdisc.
Don't
just
miss
FYI.
All in the Family.
Wow.
Tomorrow
So it
at
took
5.
4 years for the movie to come to TV.
And ABC.
Well, this is what it took in those
Wait,
days.
stop. Back it up to the beginning. Back it up to the beginning. I want to see that again. Go all the way to the beginning. Play that.
Don't miss All in the
All
Family.
the Family. There we go,
Tomorrow
right
at
there.
Tomorrow at 5.
Tonight, an ABC Sunday night movie special. Tonight, the most exciting movie ever made comes to television.
Now that's how you sell a fucking premiere.
A movie that made motion picture history.
No, this is not a boat accident. It was a shark.
Tonight, get ready for Jaws.
It's a killer. It's a man-eater. He's going to continue to feed here as long as there is food in the water.
Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, in the biggest adventure ever.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
This shark.
I just love this.
Swallow your whole.
The first time on television.
You want to ante up or spend the whole winter on welfare?
And now, get ready for Jaws.
It's crazy. That's when white people were getting welfare in Massachusetts. I thought Gary might like that one.
Now, Valiant, before you leave, because that was actually really good. You should have saved that for last. But I want to hear your guess. I want to hear your guess at how many people watched the premiere of Jaws on ABC in 1979.
God.
Throw your number out there.
I wouldn't have the first freaking 30 million. 25
More than
million.
The View.
Higher.
60 million. 60
Higher.
million.
Higher.
Holy shit. More than
80
that. Wow.
million fucking people tuned into it. One of the
So
biggest.
80 million. Not, I just want to be clear, not households, but total people, eyeballs.
Yes.
Okay.
80 million viewers estimated tuned into the network premiere of Jaws, one of the biggest television events of all time.
But Tom, the Acolyte. No, I'm sorry.
That's exactly it. I'm like, compare that to the 2 million people that watched the fucking Acolyte.
Yeah, I know. It's
yeah, we're probably talking like, yeah, it was insane. Like, that's just everybody was watching Jaws that night.
Okay, I will say, having seen that promo for the ABC release of it, I love it. But I'm just, for the record, that makes me realize how much I absolutely 1000% do not miss Pan and Scan. Fuck that shit.
Oh fuck yeah, that looks horrible.
It's horrible, isn't it?
And then
something's going on over here, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
Where's the rest of the frame? God, I can't do it anymore. Let me tell you,
like, I can't believe that 80 million viewers.
We got the first DVD player in North America that came in when we had the first high-def TVs. We had, like, the president of Sony North America come down when I worked at this high-end shop in New Orleans. This was back in 97. And, I mean, the big thing was that, holy shit, we finally have I mean, Laserdisc was there, but remember, Laserdisc really never broke through into the broad market. And you had DVDs, and all of a sudden, wait a minute, I can play something in 24 frames a second and get the original widescreen. Like, this freaked people out. Like, wait, how come the TV's broken? There's black bars on the top and the bottom, and I can't. And we had to politely tell customers, that's because you're stupid. It's like, no, it's how it's supposed to look.
No, you see, you got that wrong, Valley. You should have said, I don't see any black bars. Do you see any black bars? I don't.
Black bars is not going. I was like 18 years old at the time. And,
you're so racist.
I know. Wait a minute, Tom. Can I play my whites only laundry commercial?
No, I think you pissed everybody off enough with that. But all right, I know you got to take off, Valiant, and we're losing Gary here soon.
Right,
I want to get into the sequels here, so take care of yourself, Valiant. Thanks for sending over the crowd.
Take care. See you, man.
See you, mate.
See you later.
Cheers.
Because before we lose everybody here, there was a sequel. Because nowadays you gotta have a sequel. And I don't know if you wanted to check out before we start talking about this.
Yeah, I'll check off the sequels. But it's been absolutely awesome to just be here, like listening, like wow, the amount of knowledge on this movie is incredible. So
we just got to the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, I can tell. I'm sure you guys can go so much longer. Trust me. I don't question you guys as far as going longer. So, anyways, awesome.
Love you, Nick. Check out 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser.
Yeah, don't worry about my channel. You guys enjoy the rest of the show, and a pleasure to see Gary and Brosha, sir. Thank you for being a
Nick,
part of this.
I love you, buddy. I'll see you soon.
Love you, man. All right,
take care.
See you, brother.
Thank you.
I just want to make one comment and then leave because I have not seen any of the sequels.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna step out, but I want to just point out we went past it pretty quickly. In the very first opening of the movie, when the girl out by the buoy gets nailed from below by the shark, and he's swimming back and forth with her. She's above the surface a lot of the time, and she's screaming. That was done, I found out, by putting a climbing harness on her over her bathing suit and running a line from her. I don't know if they put it on a pulley. I don't know how they.
It was on a pulley underneath the water, and originally they wanted to use a winch. Yeah, but she wouldn't let them.
Right, and it's a good thing they didn't use a winch, but they used too many people to pull her because they had like 4 or 5 people on either end of on either rope, and they yanked her so hard through the water that she had to go to the hospital with injuries from being dragged through the water as fast and as hard as she was. And
I think she got a little.
They didn't realize. Well, she got whiplash, and she also got a spinal issue because they bent her over. They yanked her. She was going one way, and then they told the other guys go, and she's leaning one way, and they yanked her in another direction. And they really tore her up. And I mean, it really has the effect of looking like she's in the jaws of something very big. But
what's funny,
it cost her to do it.
What's funny about that red shirt is that she had a pulley thing on her harness. She could have got out any time if she needed to. But I know the funny thing is she didn't nearly drown during that scene. She was fine on that part. She nearly drowned though doing the sound effects later on. I don't know if you ever heard this story. Because to do the sound, because they didn't have sound that night, and like she was screaming when she did it on the thing, but they didn't have anything that was usable in the film, so they had to have her dub her lines and the screaming and all that kind of shit afterwards, and they couldn't figure out how to get her to do the and sound like she's actually underwater. So at some point, Steven's like, you know what, just tip your head back. So she does, and he takes this tub of water and dumps it down her fucking throat while she's screaming.
Yeah.
And she nearly drowned from that.
I heard he put a rag over her mouth, too, and he's like, effectively, he invented waterboarding. He waterboarded her.
That was just him getting back at everybody for the making of the film. It was because the movie to him was like waterboarding at that point, probably.
Yeah.
But thank you for being here, Red Shirt. It was great to hear, especially considering you coming from the area, all your insights there.
Yep. It was an event of my youth. I was, let's see, this is 75. I was 12 years old, and this was the first big, scary movie I ever saw. This was the first blockbuster that, had people, as you said, having heart attacks and getting up. They had to get up and walk out into the lobby and walk around for a minute before they went back inside because they just couldn't handle it. It was too intense. And
Yeah.
and it was just something else. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. So as a movie, it was a groundbreaker. Anyway, thank you, everybody. It's been a great time. I'll see you around, and have a great rest of the show. See you later.
Later, Red Shirt.
Let me grab these super chats real quick, and then we'll talk some Jaws 2. Sean Carter was nice enough to send in 5 and says, I love the way Quint grabs Hooper's arm before he starts talking. Subtle stuff like that just isn't shown on screen anymore. And yeah, we basically covered a lot of that stuff. ActionCom says, in the book, all the subplots come down to one word, territoriality. Yes, all are about, that was kind of what I was getting to. Thank you, ActionCom. Outsiders invading someone else's territory, yeah. Mexican Iron Man says, okay, so what you nerds are saying is I suppose that Jaws is better than Snyder's Justice League by far. How do I reflect on that? I don't know.
Define better, Mike.
Yeah, define better, Mike. It's much better. ActionCom says there are 2 deleted scenes that are interesting. One with Quint in the music store. Yeah, that one's funny. And the other with the mayor telling Brody he's supposed to referee locals. What do you think? I thought they were interesting, but they didn't need to be there. ActionCom says, was that Hooper in the opening of movie Piranha 3D?
Isn't he in it? Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
No, yeah, he's in it.
No, it's Hooper. Yeah, I think he's supposed to be Hooper. Yeah,
it's a different name, but
yeah. Well, I think there was like the joke there. Yeah. Imagine if Hobbyist says any truth to the rumor that Deep Blue Sea was first pitched as Jaws 5. Thanks, guys. I wouldn't be surprised. What I think is funny is each one of the sharks in that movie, Jaws, dies the same way one of the sharks in Jaws does. That's what I was trying to say. If you watch the movie, it's actually one of the better shark ripoff films of Jaws. But that being said, I know we're short for time with Gary here, so I want to grab any of your memories or feelings about the sequels. Let's start with Jaws 2 since that's the more prominent one. So yeah.
Well, okay, so I do have an interesting story about Jaws 2. So did you ever have the collector's cards from Topps?
I do have them.
So they didn't have Jaws cards, right? Because I wanted those, but
yeah, they did not have them for the first film. No.
When I
they
lived
did for 3 and 2, yep.
Right. When I lived, 3 as well, the 3D cards. So when I lived in Thousand Oaks near this place called Westlake, there was this little baseball card comic book shop, and it was run by, of all people, Scott Schwartz's father. You know Scott Schwartz?
Oh. The director's
the kid from A Christmas Story. The kid who puts his tongue on
the redheaded kid. Yeah,
he puts his tongue on the pole. He was in The Toy,
or not the redheaded kid, the other kid. Yeah.
He was in The Toy with Richard Pryor. So his father ran this little comic book collectible shop, and he had a bunch of Jaws 2 cards and Jaws 3 cards, and that's how I was introduced to the movie. I didn't know there were any sequels. I was like, holy shit, there's more of them. So that was I bought all the Jaws 3 cards, and they came with little 3D glasses and stuff, and the bubble gum, and and by that time they were already by the time I bought that, they were already probably 8 years old.
I was gonna say, yeah, because the
gum was not great. Age, yeah. But Jaws 2, I think it's okay. It's fine. It's a good horror movie. Monster movie. It's kind of like a bunch of teenage kids lining up to be eaten by the shark. I'm good with that. That's right. I'm cool.
But Jaws eats a helicopter in this one,
right? And I mean, it's got Roy Scheider. That's cool. But what I find interesting is there's one scene on the beach where the scientist is telling Brody, she's like, sharks don't take things personally.
She hasn't seen Jaws 4.
Well, apparently not. But the third one is just like Jurassic Park. I like the third one much better than the second
Me too.
one. It's totally cheesy, and the effects, some of the effects are so fucking bad. I mean, really bad. The stop motion shark and everything. But there's a great scene in Jaws 3 where you're inside the shark's mouth watching that guy from that TV show get eaten, and it's fucking mortifying, dude. Like, you can hear all the bones crunching in his body when he's being eaten. Yeah, that fucking shot right there. But Jaws: The Revenge was the only one I got to see in the theater. I was 7 years old when it came out. I was taken to the back lot and I got to see them film it. So that has nostalgic value to me. I obviously realized what a complete horrible fucking story the movie has, but at least it brought the, Williams score back, and, it was, E for effort, as they say,
Yeah, and the fourth film completely ignores the third film, doesn't it? It's like there's
Kind
no,
of, yeah. I mean, it doesn't, in a sense, like it could still have happened, but they don't address it at all.
Right.
Right. Like it's like it could be there, but it doesn't matter. Because I actually do like Jaws 3 as well, like you said, because it does do what a lot of the Jurassic Park films never did do. Like we were always like promised, dinosaurs running around the park with people,
eating people.
We got that for 10 seconds in Jurassic World, and that's about it.
Right.
So.
And it had Lou Gossett Jr., who's fucking great in the movie. He's so good.
Close the pot down. You hear me?
My favorite line is when it's like improvised. He hangs up the phone and he looks over at the guy at the tech board. And he's like, "Get some lights on down there.
Yeah,
people can't see shit down there." That is the fucking best line.
Yeah, I love his his whole thing is just great. How he just his everything he does in that is just amazing. And Dennis Quaid famously chain smoked through the whole movie. It got to a point where people got so pissed because he kept blowing smoke into their faces and stuff. Because if you notice, he's smoking in like every single fucking scene.
He's acting like he's all coked out too.
He's definitely all coked out.
Well, allegedly,
allegedly, there was allegedly a lot of cocaine on that set.
Yeah, but
you don't make Jaws 3D straight, my friend.
So I never saw it in 3D. I only saw Jaws 3, the 2D version. So I've never seen it in 3D.
Out, man. There's a lot of
it helps a little bit with the shitty effects.
Eyeballs.
Yeah, and then at the end, Tom, as well. At the end, when the Jaws, when the shark blows up and the Jaws come at the camera, there's a fucking stuffed ET that's flying at the camera.
All right.
Did you know that?
I did not know that till now, and now I'm gonna see it.
I used to have the little ET, the little mini plush ET, and you can see it fucking flying right past the camera.
I never noticed it, but now I will probably.
That's funny.
But before you go, I know you technically have to go down. You got a few more minutes you can spare?
Maybe a couple. Yeah,
because I did this thing. It's Andre's review of Jaws: The Revenge, and I think you might get a kick out of it.
Hey everyone. Today, I'm diving into the deep, dark, and
Tom?
Hello.
That right.
Oops, sorry.
Not the masterpiece Spielberg whipped up in '75, but the one that should have been left at sea. Let's get into this cinematic shipwreck. So, Jaws. The Revenge. The movie that answers the question no one asked. What if Jaws was personal? Right off the bat, we have a shark that apparently holds grudges. I mean, who knew sharks were so petty, right? Let's talk about the plot. It's as if the writers threw darts at a board of bad ideas. Our story follows Ellen Brody, who believes that a shark is targeting her family out of revenge. Like it's the Godfather and they massacred his boy. The shark has a vendetta.
Sleep with the fishes.
I'm no marine biologist, but not so sure that's how the force works. But then again, considering how many sharks the Brody family has killed, the shark may have a point. They have single-handedly killed more sharks than global warming to this point, so I can see why he would have a vendetta for the Brody family. And speaking of vendettas and the Brodys, this shark has a GPS for the Brody family. It follows them from the icy waters of Amity Island to the Bahamas. Yes, the Bahamas. My GPS can't get me to a fucking gas station, but this shark can find the fucking remaining Brodys on Earth no problem. Now, if the plot doesn't make you die of cringe, the special effects will. The mechanical shark in this movie seems to have been made by a high preschooler on magic mushrooms for the first time after seeing a picture of a shark once. The thing looks about
it goes
as
on for a
menacing
while,
as
but
a rubber
is this
duck.
AI?
Yeah, I used AI to make his voice, but I wrote it.
Oh wow.
I wonder that he's a little higher pitched than normal.
Yeah. He hates it when I use the AI. We tried to do it for a while, and he's
Like-
I couldn't get it to quite do it right. He's like, I sound like a drunk Swede. He said.
Like, Jaws the Revenge may not be a good looking movie, but Michael Caine's mother's house is awesome.
Right.
So it looks
I haven't
really
seen
good.
the movie, but I've seen the house that it built, and
My mother-
it's lovely.
It's like my mother's house is lovely.
Jaws the Revenge. I tell you, I got a hell of a history with that movie too. What were you saying, Andy?
You got to edit that audio because it's the perfect opportunity for you to interrupt it with Andre's commercial for Surfshark.
Oh God, yeah.
Trust me, I was trying to get him to actually do it for real, but he's like, I'd have to rewrite it, and I'd never seen the movie before, so like, yeah. Okay, so I have kind of a history with Jaws the Revenge, because like I wanted to see it so badly as a kid, but it never came around to the theaters where I lived, so I never got to see it in theater. But then I finally saw it on home video, and for those who,
I never saw it in a theater. Never.
Yeah, and if you've seen it on home video, it's the ending is completely different than what's in the theater.
Yeah, yes.
And I did not know this until my cousins had taped it for me off of like HBO or Showtime or whatever. I think it was Showtime because Universal owned Showtime. But and I'm like watching the movie, and then all of a sudden at the end, you get this weird ending where she like rams the boat into the fucking shark's gills. And like this puppet of a shark starts bleeding. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
So that's the US theatrical version.
Which ending which ending are you talking about though?
Okay, so initially I only saw the video ending where they ram into the shark and the shark blows up.
Yeah.
Like it just blows up. Like they're just like, what the fuck just happened? Oh, the shark just blew up.
Yes.
Taco Bell.
And Mario Van Peebles lives. And then all of a sudden they go from the open ocean to a fucking tank in the back lot of Universal where they reshot the ending.
Literally like a shark this big, like a tiny little model shark.
And then they reuse footage from the original film. So like this other version has this little miniature like shark that they ram this fake boat into, and like it starts bleeding out of its gills, and it's like doing all this weird shit, and then it floats down to the bottom and looks weird, and yeah,
that was the real shark that they rammed.
Is it? It looked fake as fuck.
Well, it's not as big as Bruce.
Okay,
it's like this reduced version of Bruce.
Okay,
because they were trying to save money, but that's the actual shark that they used in the movie. And that scene, that was the original theatrical ending. That's the scene that when my dad took me and my sister to go see this,
no shit,
we saw it. And then when we saw it on VHS, or when we rented it finally, it was a totally different ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the explosion ending right there. It just blows up. Look at the size of the waves. I mean, look at that shit.
Yeah.
Like
it's in a pond.
It's terrible.
It's a bathtub.
It's in a fucking bathtub. Look at that.
Yeah. And I'm trying to find here. Maybe I can find them.
That's the home video version. The other
It's
one
better than the ending John Landis planned.
Drop a
Jaws
helicopter
didn't
on the
eat that
shark.
helicopter. That helicopter ate Jaws.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the weirdest thing. I didn't understand why the ending was changed. But I guess
nothing else in the movie is, from what I know of.
Yeah, that's correct. And I guess I guess from a test audience, they decided that they wanted to save Mario Van Peebles' character. So they shot a scene of them at the back lot at the the big pool with the backdrop.
And I could never find out if they replaced it in theaters with that ending, or if it was
they didn't.
Yeah, okay, because like I was gonna say, yeah, and then they also, I think, I don't remember if this was, because this is the home video version here, so this is the one that we all knew if you saw it on home video. We'll probably get in trouble for it. And the shark roars. That's the other thing. Yeah, the shark fucking roars.
That's not a convincing shark in any way. That's a land shark.
It just blows the fuck up, just like boom. 3 times, 4 times.
Yeah.
And then they just cut to footage from the first movie. Here's the back lot now. All of a sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're on the back lot, and then this is footage from the original film.
Exactly. So
yeah,
that
so
scene
this
of them falling off of the boat and the boat being broken in half, that they actually show the full size shark with like the mast is rammed through its neck.
Now let me see if I can find the
in
theatrical
the theatrical version.
Yeah. Now let me see if I can find the theatrical so you guys can see the difference.
Yeah, it's a major difference. I don't know why they used that. There was no reason why they needed to replace what happened in the theatrical version because
What's
at least
funny
it was
is
realistic.
Yeah, because what's
it's
even
pseudo
worse,
realistic,
What's even worse is I think now that's the ending I think they put on the Blu-ray ever since. They have never put it back to the
So
theatrical
the
cut.
explosion ending was the international release and the DVD and VHS release.
Okay. So they did it more for international audiences, probably.
Yes, different. There's
So
a
this
different
is the one
ending.
that all of a sudden I'm watching it on tape and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
This is so different than what I remember. So the shark just like shoots blood out everywhere.
That's it. Right
Okay,
there.
so that is the full size shark. So this is what you saw them shooting, is what you're saying then?
That's the theater. That's what we saw in the theater.
Yeah. But this is what you saw them shooting, you said, right? Yeah, because then we actually get the miniature here. This is what I was talking about. Yeah.
There's that.
And then it cuts, and Mario Van Peebles doesn't live. It cuts right to the scene with them.
He dies
at the helicopter or the plane.
Right.
Yeah. See. So like,
and then they dub over a line.
Yeah.
Where Lorraine Gary says, "Take care of Jake."
Yeah.
Because he's still
just to
alive,
kind of
which is ridiculous.
Somebody bring the bucket with Jake in it.
Yeah.
And also another
shark does like the dark meat,
And the and the other funky thing about this is, from my memory, is I have it here and I haven't read it in years, but the novelization of Jaws: The Revenge, the author found the story so batshit crazy that they took it upon themselves to give a reason for why the shark was stalking the family. Is anybody aware of this? Oh, go ahead, Gary. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so the story is the reason why the shark is taking revenge on the family is because it's been possessed by voodoo.
Of course it has.
Yes.
I mean, that's
By the
obvious,
same
really,
voodoo-
isn't it?
By the same voodoo doctor from Weekend at Bernie's too, I would imagine. 'Cause that's
Yes,
just
so.
crazy. Like,
They're linked in the Jaws universe.
I don't know. I'm just making that shit up. But yes, a witch doctor or whatever. Yeah.
The
Has
witch
some
from
vendetta with the
Verde.
fucking Brody family for some reason.
Yep. That's
Crazy shit. But Gary, I want to thank you so much for being here with us. This is a great talk. Jaws is as the famous line goes, the shark is not working. Well, I disagree with that. The shark is still working 50 years later.
Yep. Still working.
And it's a great film. So I'm going to give you your final thoughts on the film and tell everybody about your channel again. It's shared in the link in the
Oh yeah.
description.
This movie changed my life. That's all I can say. It totally changed my life. So I didn't look at movies the same way. This was the movie that I saw when I started understanding what movies really were about and how to make them, as opposed to them being something that was just really happening on TV. This movie absolutely changed my life. So yeah, I'm Gary Ambrosia. Check me out over at Check Me Out. I'm kicking. Check me out. I will be over on Wednesday night with Dictor Van Doomcock and my buddy here, Andy Masterson. We'll be running our mouths. And check out my channel too, because I got a lot of cool little pieces of cinema history on my channel. Anyway, that's it, you guys. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, 70s.
Yeah, well, thanks for
Good
being
to see
here,
you,
man.
mate. Yeah, good to see you.
Andy, I'll see you soon, buddy.
Got it.
All right, catch you later.
And we got a few more super chats here before we go. We've got let's see, we got Action Comic who says, do you think Roaring Shark would be a great name for a metal band? Yes.
I think Exploding Shark would be better.
That works too. What about shit sandwich or shark sandwich?
Shit sandwich.
You can't write that. That's not real.
Real.
Imagine if Hobby sends in 5 and says, rest in peace, Judith Barcy, the granddaughter. She voiced Ducky in The Land Before Time too. Oh yes, that's right. The little girl from Jaws: The Revenge. Yeah. Yeah, that's too bad. Oh, what do we got here? You're grabbing Gary's grabbing Doctor Who's tits. I don't think he wanted you to show us this picture.
Bottoms up.
I'm really thinking he didn't want you to show us this.
But
thank you for showing us this. Axicom says the alternate opening to Jaws: The Revenge, where a narrator talks about the fake. I have not. I've heard that, seen that version, but I don't know where it's at.
Jaw the Revenge would be better. It's a disabled shark. It's only got the top half of its mouth.
Is it on? I think is it the TV version?
Swimming around in a wheelchair.
This shark's in a wheelchair. I don't. I've only ever seen it once. I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this comes from, but I think this is it. I'm not sure if it ever got used or not, or where it came from.
Since time immemorial, events have taken place with no evident reason for their happening. Such phenomena has been man's dilemma and the subject of constant philosophical discussions. When there is no factor motivating an event, no case of cause creating effect, what triggered the action? Fate or circumstances? What you are about to see concerns such an event. Maybe you can determine whether we are dealing here with circumstances or fate.
I don't. I mean,
yeah, I know I've seen that before, but I don't know where it came from or if it was what it was all about. So, I think in the IMDb trivia it says it was just it was an unused. It was the studio was testing it to see if it would help during one of the test screenings, but it didn't or something like that.
Did they ever explain why Michael Caine's shirt was completely dry when he comes out of the water?
Miracle fabric.
Miracle
that's
fabric.
Black girl magic.
Black shark magic.
Black shark magic. Yes.
Black Shark Moan with Samuel Jackson.
Christine Ricci, let's go. Yeah, baby.
Still, it was nominated for a lot of Razzies. It didn't even win them, which is the worst possible thing you can do for a bad movie is not win a Razzie. Like, just be nominated. You're not bad enough to even win one.
Okay, I think I found the answer to that, and this is what I thought, and this is probably I looked it up before, that's why I remembered this. But the Daily Jaws says here was for the US TV broadcast, that's why. Yeah, I was gonna say, I know I've seen it somewhere before. Yeah, to try and help explain the bullshittery of the movie. Basically.
Personally, I think it's a shame that we've never seen. I'd love to see Jaws 19.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Jason Webster sends in 5 Australian and says Robert Shaw should have got the Academy Award nomination and win for Best Supporting Actor for his performance in Jaws, masterclass of acting. Oh yeah, that was the other clip I wanted to show, but we just ran out of time, and I totally spaced it out. Was Steven Spielberg? There's actual video, but you can see that in that documentary. So check out Jaws at 50 if you haven't. But yeah, the video of Steven Spielberg when he's listening to the nominations, and when he didn't get nominated for Best Director. And that caused a big stir at the time because everybody was like, how can you get Best Picture but not Best Director? Like, everybody thought there was some sort of, like, vendetta against Spielberg. Like, he was a black sheep of sorts.
Don't know what's going on there.
What do you mean? Black sheep? Where?
I'm pretty sure I had some black sheep behind me for a second there.
Well, I heard you got to go to a certain part of town to find those black sheep.
Well, there they are. That was weird.
Black sheep matter.
You call that one Black Beauty?
Enough of that.
Yeah,
Black sheep magic.
And
Black sheep
magic. That's what gets Brian through the winters.
I just noticed there was a bit of blurring in the background. I realized I had it set for virtual background. Anyway,
there's a bit of blowing in the background. Is that what you're saying?
Blurring, blur. I said there was some blur.
Blowing. Yeah.
The answer, my friend, is buying in the wind.
Now tomorrow you're going to be doing a Brian Wilson special. I hope
I am
to be able to make it, but I don't know if I can for sure. But people should check it out just the same if you want to. Talk about it.
Cannot allow his passing to be unmarked. So. Yes, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, YouTube and Rumble and X, but we'll do the first hour on YouTube, then we just go to Rumble exclusively, so we can actually play some music. So first hour YouTube, then the show will continue on Rumble. So yeah, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, my channel.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm getting old, and all my heroes are passing. So,
well, God only knows how much longer you have.
That's right. Yeah, Probably not as long as I'd like. But
Well, hopefully you're with us as long as.
who's going to look after the sheep? That's what I want to know.
That's right. Yes, those sheep will be lonely without you. So check out 70s Rock Fans channel.
Hopefully, we'll see you all there tomorrow. Yes, it should be a very fun chat about some great music.
Awesome. Andy, you got a channel as well.
Yeah, that I never do anything with. I really got to change that. 1/6 scale action figures, Laboratory Mayhem. I got some fun stuff up there, and at some point, the psychic down the street said I will eventually make some more content. Otherwise, I'll see you on Doomcock's channel tomorrow night, or no, Wednesday night. Yeah,
Wednesday night.
I'm losing a couple days.
Getting ahead of yourself. You're like me now. You don't even know what fucking day of the week it is anymore. I want to thank all y'all for coming in tonight. I know this wasn't a typical tier list, but with 4 films, I mean, what are we going to do? Put Jaws in number A, Jaws 2 and B, Jaws 3 and C, and Jaws 4 and D or F? Like that's your tier list. There you go.
Where would Jaws the Revenge be? Probably in
D or F, like I said, yeah.
Even if it's going to be an F, even if D is the lowest we can give, it'll still be an F.
But here's the problem with Jaws Revenge. Like Gary, I have like this. I know why people dislike it. It is a horrible fucking movie, but it's one of those movies that's so batshit crazy that I adore it for its nuttiness. Right?
Certain charm.
It has that charm to it that I can watch it. Like I can watch it no problem. Like
the masterpiece compared to most movies these days. Yeah.
It is in a weird way. I mean, is it fucking stupid as hell? Yes. And I can laugh at the movie as I'm watching. It is like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of thing, I guess. Whatever you want to call it. So yeah,
there's a place for those movies.
It is one of the best worst movies ever made.
Yes, exactly.
In that respect. But so is Jaws 3D in some ways, and I totally understand why people don't like that movie or love to hate that movie or however you want to put it too. So with that, Andy, check out his channel, check out 70s Rock Fan, check out all the other folks that were on here. Watch Gary's video. All the work he put into that fin is amazing. And this will send you over to Gary to Mark D's stream. So check. Oh, that's me.
Oh, it is.
I like that sweatshirt I got on. Look at that sexy man. Sexy man.
Unless I'm my mirror thing.
How do you know I always wear sweatpants?
Does everybody?
I thought you wore nothing.
Well,
everything below the waist is kaput.
It is true. Thank you all for being here. Take care of yourselves and good night.